Alright, welcome to SunnyRedemption sailing once again. The coolest and wateriest, graviest of gaming shows on the internet. So, I'm just waiting for... Well, I'm gonna set sail first, actually, but I'm waiting for my Captain Kevin to get online, and, oh, there he is. Okay.
I'm loading
Perfect
in.
timing.
Almost there.
Oh, wait. Oh, you're not on the ship yet.
No,
I'll just lower you. Duh. I forgot that it doesn't necessarily tell you when you're on the game itself, as opposed to just loading in, because it just says joining your crew.
Mm-hmm. All right, now I'm in.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm by the Sovereigns.
Okay.
If you want to navigate there. There's also a commendation, I don't know if you know this, for riding the zip line down from the top of the island.
Oh, I don't think I did know that. Cool.
It's like Zipline of the Ancients or something like that.
Huh.
Yeah, it's pretty freaking cool. Thank you for joining the stream.
Not notice.
Huh. Yeah, if it hasn't popped up again, then that's probably what happened.
Yeah.
But, okay. So yeah, I've got the voyage set. I'll mark off the map locations while you sail us.
Okay.
Okay. Rather than...
So we've got
Discovery
Ridge,
Mm-hmm.
Thunder Valley, and Wanderer's Refuge.
Okay. Plunder Valley and Wanderer's
And Wanderer's Refuge is up a bit.
Oh, yeah. So then the closest outpost to that would probably be, let's see, Port Merrick. So
Yeah,
we can just, like, go,
If we go from here to Discovery, Plunder, and Wanderers.
Yeah. And who knows what other random treasure we'll encounter along the way.
I'm sure there will be something to sidetrack us along the way.
Thou shall get sidetracked by bullshit once again. But we have lots of amazing not bullshit to talk about. Okay, first of all, I want to set up the scene by saying your predictions from yesterday. So, reemergence of Metroid Prime 4 definitely happened. Something Zelda definitely happened, and I want to talk about that. The Fire Emblem remake that you were speculating about from one of the Japan only...
a lot of corroborated sources that it does exist.
It just wasn't announced this time. But...
I mean, they always hold things till they're ready to release them. So that could even just, at this point, be a Switch 2 game. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I think they were attempting to fill a lot of the JRPG hole in the announcements for first party with... And
the thing is, Nintendo has so much stuff always kind of... They're one of the few publishers with really the luxury to just hold on to a game for years. They've done it before, and they'll continue
as long as they can.
Yeah. Like, the game's supposedly been done, localized, everything for, like... I remember hearing about it, like, 2022, and a bunch of people were like, yep, that game exists, and it's somewhere.
Well, for now, they've plugged in the hole while they're getting ready for whatever announcement with Fantasian and the Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake.
Yeah.
I understand what they're going for with that. That name is very, very odd.
I mean, the thing is, they have to separate it somehow because they already have versions of those games on the eShop and other stores.
Oh, okay.
So they have to differentiate it somehow, I guess.
And then, of course, the other banners on the show. So, where do you even begin? Because I think you were most excited... It seems like you were most excited for... and unfortunately, no Hollow Knight Silksong trailer for you. That game will just be...
That game's being made by a small team. Like, it's just...
For a while.
It seems like it's been in some state of being playable. Because I remember they showed it off at the last pre-pandemic E3. That was its big coming out show where it had a playable demo and everything. That was 5 years ago at this point.
What?
So it's like, I guess they're really, really polishing it up at this point.
Sure. It's not really my jam anyway, but I hope it'll be a good game.
It was shown at the Xbox showcase 2 years ago as one of those games that was supposed to come out in the next 12 months. That was 24 months ago.
Yeah, back when Microsoft was actually trying to release stuff on specific schedules.
Was the one time they tried that gimmick, and then none of that really panned out at all. So I get why they haven't done that again. But like, yeah, I'm kind of expecting Silksong to resurface at an Xbox thing. It seems like, I don't know if they have the marketing for it, but they do have it coming to Game Pass. And at this point, that is like a huge get for them. Although I'm sure that deal was signed years and years ago when it was less of a big deal. But that game's gained such like momentum and hype behind it at this point that like I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft also got some sort of marketing rights for it to show up at one of their things at some point.
And it's interesting you bring up Microsoft because Perfect Dark coming to Nintendo Switch Online.
I mean, the thing is just like the GoldenEye remake, except the differences between this and the GoldenEye remake is the 360 version of Perfect Dark does have online play. So there's no like disparity there. But
that's true.
If you have access to the 360 version, there's not many reasons to play the Switch version that they just put out. But it's still interesting to go back for comparison's sake, I guess. And there are some slight differences. Like, I mean, obviously the graphics are actually fairly different. Like, they went back and redid a lot of the textures on the 360 version. So I guess it is at least interesting. Like, I'll probably boot it up at some point tonight or tomorrow just to play it, because I've played the original version since the 360 version came out.
Tonight drop.
Yeah, it's already out. So that's cool that happened, at least. It's cool to have that on there. More rare games on there is never a bad thing. I think it just brings us closer to like stuff that I really want that hasn't been re-released as much, like Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo-Tooie, Donkey Kong 64, even stuff like that.
And it's interesting you say that.
Stuff I'm waiting for.
Then it's interesting you say that, considering that we're on a Banjo-Kazooie themed ship in Sea of Thieves, which is the latest game that Rare has made.
Hope springs eternal.
Yes. But not for Marvel vs. Capcom collection on Xbox.
Saw that.
Why?
Yeah, that's one of those weird things. Capcom does weird things with their collections where I don't understand the logic. Because it's similar to what's been happening with their Ace Attorney collections, and the Mega Man collections they've done.
Right, the Ace Attorney thing got announced,
and then randomly one of them they decide not to bring over. Like, all of the Ace Attorney collections have made it, except for the Great Ace Attorney collection that came out a couple of years ago. And it's like, why that one in particular did you decide not to release on Xbox? Same with the Marvel vs. Capcom stuff. It's like, okay, they have the Street Fighter collection, they have all these other collections. Why is this one being singled out as not coming to Xbox? You would think something with Disney involved in some fashion would, I don't know. And
would want the broadest sales possible.
One of the broadest appeal collections you could put out for a fighting game collection at this point, because Marvel vs. Capcom has, especially Marvel vs. Capcom 2, that's kind of the crown jewel of that collection. Like, people want to play that again. I don't understand why this collection is not coming, while the Ace Attorney Investigations collection, probably the most niche one you could get, is coming.
Oh, I thought that was just a thing of all of the games. I'm so confused about these collections.
Those are spin-offs that came out on DS, and the second one never got officially released in the US.
Okay.
But I did play it through a fan patch like a decade ago. So I have played both of them, but I will buy and play it again. Those are great games. But again, like, I don't understand how that, which I can't see selling more than the Capcom Marvel collection, why is that coming to Xbox and not that one? Like, I don't understand that logic at all. I'm sure they have some sort of numbers or empirical proof to prove why they're doing one over the other, but from the outside looking in, it makes no sense to me.
Well, I will say that in general, it seems that the third-party situation on Xbox is suffering and has been for a long time.
I mean, but it's in the case of the Capcom decisions, they're making so many great decisions otherwise that I just want to know. I would love to just get a job at Capcom and look through their numbers and be like, why are we doing this and not this? Like,
yeah, that should be what you say on the interview.
Like, and it's weird. It's like it doesn't feel like a Square Enix move where like, okay, maybe they're fishing for a Game Pass money down the line or something. Because I don't think these, at least not the Ace Attorney one that never made it to Xbox, like that isn't one that like I think Microsoft would target as a Game Pass thing necessarily. I don't understand. Like, it doesn't feel like that's what Capcom's going for. They're just deciding fairly, again, from an outsider's perspective, fairly randomly which collections within which series go to Xbox. And I just don't understand. I'll continue to not understand that.
I'll continue to die mad, I guess.
And again, with the Mega Man collections, they put out all of the Mega Man and Mega Man X collections on Xbox, then proceeded to not put the Battle Network collection on Xbox recently. It's like, I get it.
Oh no, I'm dead.
As well as the Switch, or probably even, I'm coming. Probably even PS5 versions, because those games were originally portable. They're kind of designed to be portable, but I still don't get why you wouldn't just put some extra time into porting it over to Xbox. I don't know.
I'm trying to find some ammo somewhere. Because I stupidly did not bring throwables. And I'm dead again.
Okay. I'm coming. I don't see your nameplate for some reason.
There's a couple of them on my body. Who cares? I'm just gonna offer my soul. Okay. And then actually stock up like I should have been doing. But yeah, in general, I get it. There's definitely a decline in console sales, which means that Microsoft's strategy of get these Xbox games
are also
from
coming
PC
out
to Xbox.
Right, but these collections are not just Series X exclusive. These are ones that would come to Xbox One as well. Like, these are collections of like fairly low spec games in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, but apparently the situation with the Xbox One was just so bad, like in terms of porting down from PC to Xbox, that they created a mid-gen console to be able to port these games successfully with Project Helix.
In the specific case of these ports, like, they're already doing the work to put them on PS4, PS5, and Switch. What is another, like, in terms of development costs? Again,
it could be a few months for barely any sales.
I guess I get that, but then why do they do some of them and not others? That's what I'm confused about. If they did none of them and had a consistent stance on it, that I wouldn't expect any of them to come to Xbox. And it's like, okay, I get it, But
it sucks, but I get it. Yeah,
they just put out the Ace Attorney 4, 5, and 6 collection on Xbox after having not done the last collection on Xbox.
What?
And now
why would? That's like a Kingdom Hearts 3 level dumb decision.
That's why it perplexes me so much, and why I keep saying the same thing. Like, I don't understand what Capcom is doing with that. They're just selectively, like, they're putting the Ace Attorney Investigations collection on Xbox while not putting the ones that, like, were actually coming out in the West for the first time on Xbox that people were pretty excited for getting translated a couple years ago.
Speaking of odd Japanese games, so I actually decided to refund the Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5 remix that I just got on sale on my Steam Deck, because I have become incredibly hooked on American Truck Simulator, and I'm getting the Utah, New Mexico, and Oregon DLCs, I think. So that refund should cover that, and then I'll sell a couple physical games to get more Steam credit for a couple others down the line. That game is definitely my comfort game right now. And I haven't had much time for anything else.
Yeah, I played a bit of Euro Truck Sim way back in the day. I haven't played the American Truck Sim stuff.
Well, it's fantastic.
I'm dead.
Other than the times when I get randomly fined $1,200 by one traffic sign that was kind of hard to see.
You can't get me, it's okay.
Oh no! Yeah, I have to. Okay. I have to back out and get.
I'll be back
here. Okay. Nope, I gotta run. And I'm dead. Fantastic.
Right, I'm coming back. Yeah, but I mean, outside of the Capcom weirdness, I think, most of the other third-party stuff is coming to Xbox. Even stuff that I necessarily wouldn't expect, like the Dragon Quest 3 stuff, Fantasian. Yeah. Like, that stuff's cool. Like, happy that stuff's coming everywhere.
Fantasian, I've tried out Apple Arcade so many times and just bought a Mac Mini that I could play Fantasian on, but the state of Mac gaming is very strange. I'll talk about that later, but like, I've had so many opportunities to play this game, but I think that again, platform impressions are very hard to shake, and people thinking that mobile gaming is shitty is very hard to shake with just a few boutique games in a subscription service and not any heavy-hitting exclusives. I'm sorry, the Fantasian was touted as one of those, but like, people were just like, what? For most people, I think.
The thing is, the talent behind it is like great, but the thing is, Mistwalker is kind of a smaller studio than I think people think they are. Because when they were making like Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon, they were, pretty well sized at the time as like a pretty big studio, and they also had Microsoft funding at the time. And now it's like, okay, they've scaled back in recent years. So they still have obviously the big names there, like Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy. Like that's one of the biggest names you can have. But they're not like a AAA development studio. They haven't been for over a decade. So I think expectations have to be met along those lines. Like I've heard Fantasian's like a decent, small scale RPG, and I think people maybe were expecting more out of that, given that Final Fantasies are very, very, those are always some of the biggest budget games of the times. So,
yeah. Well, let's see. Okay, so it's like where to even start with the good news of the show, though, because I think we got pretty much all the bad out of the way with that weirdness.
I mean, except for some of the stuff that looked rough, like that Funko Pop game.
Oh yeah, game. I wasn't really planning on talking about that anyway, because it just looks like, oh yay, another frickin' multiverse crossover game.
This feels like the end of the generation where you're just kind of getting all the crap out of the way, I guess.
Yeah. Well, speaking of current gen, Metroid Prime 4 looks pretty current gen to me, at least in terms of lighting techniques, and the trailer did look a little soft, but that's kind of expected, because I think this is going to be a cross-gen game and a Switch 2 launch game.
Was my impression too, where I'm like, this could be maybe Switch gameplay, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Switch 2.
Because what they're doing is with the Switch 2, they were very clear they are not teasing anything about the Switch 2. Yeah. But from what we can already glean, it's likely running a portable chipset at the same power level as the PS4 on the go. That seems to be the new floor, because you can do a bunch of fancy upscaling and image reconstruction and blah 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 to get it playable looking. And since it was able to run the Matrix Awakens Unreal Engine 5 demo, that tells me that it should be able to run most current gen games fine in terms of like porting down. So we can definitely see some of the best games from this generation coming in to fill the software lineup pretty quickly, while Nintendo continues to output its first party and align it well, which, again, Metroid Prime 4, it feels like its development was a similar situation to Breath of the Wild, where it started as a target for one thing, but by the time they were like, okay, we have to really delay this to make sure it's good.
I mean, the difference between Prime 4 and Breath of the Wild, I would say, though, is that Prime 4 actually had some of the most public trouble development that Nintendo game has ever had, because, like, rarely does Nintendo just swap studios midstream like that, where they literally had
I didn't remember that.
The first couple of years of development, they announced it in 2017 as like, hey, this is being developed by one of our internal teams. I forget which one, but it was being developed internally, and Retro was supposedly working on some other stuff, and then like 2 years later, they had to say, hey, they had to publicly come out and say, we're restarting development on this game. And
I forgot about that.
Yeah, like that's one of the most open things Nintendo's ever said about development struggles, and that's just fascinating to me because like they never acknowledged anything like that. But they kind of had to in that case because people would be wondering, where is this game? You announced it 2 years ago. Where is it? And it's like, well, we're starting from scratch with Retro, who has consistently done great work on the franchise. So, it's supposedly at this point that we're seeing it's been in probably development there for about 5 years, and it looks pretty great.
Yeah, well, let's hope it comes out well. It seems like the gameplay was pretty reminiscent of Metroid Prime. I haven't really been able to get much of a feel for it because
everything I saw looked like, yep, that's more Metroid Prime, and that's kind of what people want from the series, because there hasn't been a new proper Metroid Prime game since 2007. So it's been quite a while.
My guess is that it was originally supposed to be a little wilder, but then they had to rescope with that restart. I also haven't really been able to get much of a feel for Metroid Prime gameplay because I keep trying to emulate the frickin' thing, but I think it's like there's some sort of file format from the Vim's Lair folks that I downloaded that isn't compatible with the particular emulator that I found for the Steam Deck. But we'll see.
I mean, are you using just like straight up Dolphin?
No, I'm using EmuDeck.
Okay. I don't know about that one. I thought they had Dolphin up.
It's supposed to have a Dolphin core. So I don't really know what the problem is.
In the case of Dolphin, I would recommend going with just Dolphin rather than one of those all-in-one emulator suites. Because there's a lot of particulars with like shaders and stuff that you want to be sure are like working right. And the thing with stuff with those, emulator sort of compiled.
Careful of firebombs.
Is they aim for a broad range of titles across platforms, but not always the best compatibility possible.
Well, Karma got me back, and I'm on fire too.
Oh, okay. So yeah, if there is a Dolphin branch that's like stable on Steam Deck, which I thought there was, I would recommend just going that route, just directly.
Yeah, the main convenience features for EmuDeck.
Metroid Prime's one of those games that like everybody emulates. There's always been mods for it, like for twin stick controls and stuff, and mouse controls.
Oh yeah, that was my big problem when I emulated it on my Ambernic Win 600.
That game runs pretty well on Dolphin, so I would recommend seeking that out if you really want to play it. Or I know you don't have to Switch right now, but if you did, just buy the Vita.
Well, I can always borrow it from my friend. That's what I'm going to try to do, and I might get the Switch 2 at launch, so I can have a system for myself. But anyway...
I actually just bought the remaster this afternoon, because I didn't buy it at launch because I just played through all 3 Metroid Prime games again at the beginning of the pandemic. So I'm like, I can wait a while. But now it's been a while, it's like, okay, I'm ready for that remaster now. Oh, I died. I didn't think that ball would play.
Yeah, no, I'm going the softer way down.
Yeah, so I literally...
and another captain just came up, so I'm not going down after all.
Oh, okay. I'll be right back there. Yeah, but I'm excited. I'll probably play some of that remake tomorrow. I've heard nothing but things about it.
The main convenience features for EmuDeck are definitely the ease of adding it to your Steam library as a non-Steam game, because that's the easiest way to hop straight in gaming mode. Like,
I get that.
The desktop mode is very fiddly because of the way the controls and mouse emulation and whatever work. But I'll dive back in at some point to try and tweak it, probably closer to Metroid Prime 4 with a twin stick mod, so I can, like, actually play this game and get good at it and see if that's really a kind of gameplay style that would make me buy an entire other console for possibly $400.
I mean, the thing with the Prime series is they're a little up and down in quality. Like, I even change my own opinion on, like, 2 and 3 pretty often, because 1 I consider, like, an unmitigated masterpiece. It's just, like, I've probably beaten it 6 or 7 times. It never gets old for me. Then 2 is a little tough because it's a much more unforgiving structure to it.
Oh, I did kill that captain, by the way, and got the skull.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, there's still another wave somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 is very unforgiving. It's definitely the hardest in the series. Like, I remember getting frustrated with it as a kid.
I can
especially
see that.
some of the bosses. But it's a very, like, 1 is a very, like, by-the-book Metroid game in a lot of ways, and then 2 goes in some weird, sometimes dark places, like in the environments and stuff. And then 3 is a much weirder game because they go a lot more, like, dialogue-heavy, and, like, there's other NPCs and stuff, which is very weird for a Metroid game. Yeah, it was a weird direction, and I wonder where 4 is going to land on that, because if they're continuing on from 3... you would think they would continue on in that more dialogue-filled direction, and they are already introducing an older character in from Metroid Prime Hunters, actually.
Oh, yeah, I had no idea about that.
He's the guy who shows up with that, like, vertical-looking visor at the end of the trailer.
I gotta look at that again.
So,
to tell.
Okay, I'm gonna really, really nerd out about the Metroid timeline here.
Okay!
Silas was from Metroid Prime Hunters, which contained a bunch of other rival bounty hunters. And he was the one who sort of was the one that they brought back into Prime 3. At the very end of Metroid Prime 3, he shows up in his ship, seemingly up to no good. Like at the very end of the game.
So it's a setup.
Like, oh my god, they brought back... It was a huge surprise at the time, because they're like, oh my god, they're actually bringing back the guy from Metroid Prime Hunters. And then... they've been slowly building this arc of him over the past 20 years of him becoming, like, the villain of the next Metroid Prime game, because in Metroid Prime Federation Force, a game I didn't play, but I watched the ending on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah, the 3DS one, right?
At the end, yeah, he shows up at the very end of that game and harnesses the power of the Metroids, who he presumably shows up with in the trailer from today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've been slowly building this narrative of Silas as this next big Metroid villain, and it seems like they're going to actually do it in 4.
Right, with 4. Since they've had a bunch of side games in between Metroid Prime 3 and this. So when did that come out again?
Which one?
Prime 3?
2007.
Okay, so that was like.
Yeah. So it'll have been 18
Is that the one where
mainline Prime games?
Is that the one where they had Samus crying a lot and, like,
no,
dark
that's
backstory?
Metroid Other M. We don't need to acknowledge that game.
Okay, yeah, we don't talk about that game in this house.
That game actually played okay in spots, but again, the story of that game was an absolute train wreck.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm fine with ignoring that.
There's Reaper. I'm just gonna go.
Yeah, let's just go.
Yeah. I didn't see any on my map earlier. They might have server migrated or something.
Oh crap! They're right on top of us! Okay, you know what?
Yeah. That's why I said we're just gonna go.
Yeah, definitely going. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh no! Oh, well, I have my cannonball pointed at them if they try to get closer, which they certainly will.
Let's try to see, because right now we're sailing...
That is
away.
Brigantine, so if they catch us, we're toast.
More than likely.
Oh.
Okay, so let's try to catch the wind a bit better.
Okay, yes. Just keeping an eye out on them. Oh, goodness. Do you mind? We're trying to talk about the Nintendo Direct over here.
Okay, yeah, they're going to try to do something to us.
Of course they are. Oh! Someone's landing in the water. All right.
I just saw them. I saw them. They're going to try to get on. They're going to try to board the left side, probably. I'm watching the ladder.
Oh, wait. Yeah, no, I'm just remembering that was the location of the ladder. I'm going to watch the other ladder.
Yeah, I didn't see... Okay, and they've got They're coming up on our side, kind of, so they're probably going to start taking some shots. So get the left cannon ready, too.
Yep, oh, it's already ready.
Here they go. Got the wood ready.
I'm gonna grab this change. I'm gonna grab some scatter shot. Hope that does something.
What a wood supply looks like. I didn't look yet.
They shot a fireball. Okay.
Yep.
All right, this is bad. But I did refill on wood before we left at the supply store or whatever.
Okay, here, and they just directly hit me with a cannonball.
Okay, well, as long as the ship. Oh no, it's not. Okay, that's not great.
They're definitely gonna try to board us here. So.
All right. Well. Okay. Yeah. No, this is not good.
Trying to get the mast back up.
I'm repairing down below. Yep. Okay. Oh god! Oh god! Oh god!
Enemies on the ship. On the ship.
All right. Where are you, you son of a bitch?
He's anchoring us.
Of course, that's what I would do.
Yep.
Oh wait, I'm out of ammo? What the fuck? Okay. No. No. This is very bad. Oh wait, I have all these.
Failing.
Got him off the ship with a plunder bomb. Nice. No, stop with the quest thingy.
Alright.
What is going on? Okay.
Back up too, but I'm trying to repair. Keep us equalized.
Oh, nope.
Okay, that might be one of us.
Nope, I'm alive still.
Okay, I will be back later.
But it probably is still it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
At this rate, yeah, okay. Nope, I'm already... Fine, whatever, it was just one thing. They can have it. But we're gonna have to go back if we want to do emissary, though probably not. If we're spawning anywhere near them.
Yeah.
I mean, on the server, on the server is one thing. We can avoid that. Well, our first L in a while. That's okay.
Yeah, we've had a good run, so it's not.
It was bound to end eventually, but we put up a pretty stiff resistance for a sloop that was clearly very hooked into by a much bigger ship. Oh well. Okay, I think that gives us an opportunity while we figure out our next move to talk about Mario and Luigi Brothership.
Oh yeah, I love that they started the show with that. I love almost all the Mario and Luigi games. I'm excited to see them back, but I'm also wondering who's actually developing them, because the team that developed the original ones went out of business right before COVID. So
yeah, I forget what they were called, but I heard some comments about. Yeah, exactly. Like people were like, the Alpha Dream is still going on, and I'm like, okay, I guess that's the name.
I mean, if they did end up hiring from that studio and giving...
Well, I think they meant spiritual successor.
Oh, okay.
You know, like, still the style of gameplay is still going strong, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Because, Alpha Dream just seemed like they didn't... I don't know if, and it's something where I'm unsure whether to blame Nintendo for this, because Alpha Dream was a third-party company who just, was just making mostly Mario and Luigi games, and they got into this pattern of remaking them. Like, they remade the first one for 3DS right at the end of its lifespan, and then inexplicably in, 2019, one of the last 3DS games to come out was a remake of the third one, where those games are both great, but I don't know why they were chasing that audience rather than making something for Switch at that point, honestly. Like, if that was a Nintendo decision, then I'll blame Nintendo. If that was their decision to do that just as a 3DS game at that point in time, then I guess it's sort of their fault. But they did go under pretty shortly after that came out.
It's possible that they were just too slow as a company to switch because, for first-party developers...
They have the backing of Nintendo, though, in that case. They're developing a Mario and Luigi. They're developers of the Mario and Luigi series, which had sold pretty well.
But first-party games always get dev kits first, and they may have been like,
yeah,
"Oh, we don't really need them."
I feel like they should have been able to get them and have something up and running on a Switch before 2019. That's just another one of those things I don't understand. Where why are you putting this out 2.5 years after the Switch has come out?
Again, it may be the case that they thought that, oh, the Switch audience isn't going to be that big, and we still have a dedicated fan base on 3DS, and we know how to develop for 3DS.
Yeah, I guess, but
it's still odd.
That's just one of those weird things where it's like Nintendo's not immune from, I think, criticism over that stuff because, like, that was a studio who had pumped out success after success for them. You know, they created a new RPG series in a field that already had Mario RPG by Square and Paper Mario by Intelligent Systems. Like, they were able to find a third way to make a Mario RPG.
Wow,
and that's pretty impressive.
I didn't realize that Mario could have so many RPGs, but here we are.
Exactly, and it's crazy that Nintendo's now embracing that again, because for over a decade they felt like they were asleep at the wheel for RPGs, where, you know, the last one that really came out in that traditional style was Mario Luigi Paper Jam by Alpha Dream in 2015, I want to say. And that game wasn't, like, super great either, but it was still, like, a traditional Mario RPG style game. And then, in the meantime, Nintendo was doing other things like Sticker Star, Color Splash, then Origami King with Paper Mario, where it seems like they just weren't quite hitting the mark that fans wanted. And, you know, it's one of those cases where Nintendo actually might listen to some feedback and go, okay, let's just start from scratch. Let's remake the first Mario RPG, see what worked with that. Let's remake the one that people liked the most, which was Thousand Year Door. They just put that out. And let's make a whole new Mario and Luigi RPG. Oh, by the way, we might want to just put down a new quest, because we're pretty far from where we were.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine with canceling.
Yeah, so let me cancel.
But that is okay. Yeah, while I'm picking the quest, so it seems like
it looks like those Reapers are gone, by the way, so we might be good to just go back in Emissary somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. We're gonna have to sail to the location because we have treasure already. So, okay. Let me just mark stuff on the map. The closest appears to be Daggertooth, but I could be wrong.
That's where I'm headed.
Okay, good. So... Alright, I know what I wanted to say. So, it seems like these RPG games are very helpful in a latter stage of console life because they're not graphically demanding at the end of a generation, and they seem to be easier to make than, like, a new 3D something or other. Or even a new 2D Mario.
I mean, we're at a point where, just to get off on this tangent, where, like, it's been so long since the 3D Mario, it's been 8 years since Odyssey, or it will be 8 years from Odyssey when the Switch 2 comes out, presumably. So I think everyone at this point is expecting the next actual 3D Mario. You know, like, I would expect that to be a launch game at this point, because Bowser's Fury wasn't, you know, that surely took development time, but not like an astronomical amount.
Well, launch year anyway, because the last one launched in the fall of 2017, so that seems like it tracks.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, what are they actually up to? Are they going to expand on what they sort of presented in Bowser's Fury with that sort of more open area design? Or are they, you know, just going to find a new twist on it?
Yeah, we'll see. But speaking of new twists,
I mean, that'll be almost assuredly right alongside the Switch 2, I would imagine.
Well, speaking of new twists on old gameplay, Echoes of Wisdom, The Legend of Zelda. Zelda finally gets her own game, and it's with the Tri-Rod.
Yeah, I think it's great that they're doing something new with a 2D Zelda.
Pretty cool.
I'm not quite sold on the mechanic yet. That's something where I'll just have to play to see what the puzzles are like with it. Because right now, it seems very much like, oh, you just stack things on things, and Like, it's cool, but I'm not as instantly sold on it as I was with, for example, when they showed that Here's the Kingdom trailer that had the Ascend Tower. Like, oh, I instantly can think of 1,000 different ways this can be used. Or even with, like, Link Between Worlds, the last, big 2D Zelda game, where they showed the, like, more, melding into the walls 2D style tower, where I'm like, oh, I instantly know how they can use this for puzzles. With this, I'm kind of like, they're trying something different, and I don't really have a good sense in my mind, even with what they showed, of like how this is going to work within, like, are there going to be like traditional style dungeons still? How are they going to fit that into the existing Zelda framework?
It seems like what they're doing here is finding new ways to exploit the physics systems that they were kind of riffing on for the past 2 3D games. And the DLCs of Breath of the Wild, and honestly, I'm fine with just that, because, Tears of the Kingdom was too much for me. I literally had analysis paralysis and had no freaking idea where I was supposed to go, or what to do in most of the puzzles, because of all the extra abilities stacked on top of the weird controls. So, I'm fine if the puzzles are super easy in Echoes of Wisdom, which, again, I'm probably not getting that until I know what the Switch 2 launch lineup is like, because the backwards compatibility will definitely help that system. I mean, like, again, it's very odd that the last time that Zelda, the title character, was the star of the game that was in a Legend of Zelda mainline was on the freaking Philips CDI.
Yeah. I mean, like, as a playable character, certainly. She has had, like, fairly major roles in other Zelda games, but yeah, like, being the
like Hyrule Warriors and blah, blah, blah. But
and
not
even more the mainline games, like, Twilight Princess, she's pretty pivotal.
Oh, right, yeah, as the
and then,
what was the character called?
Midna? Probably.
Well, well, apparently Zelda, like, disguised herself as a boy or something.
No, that was Ocarina of Time.
Okay, yeah, that was the one I was thinking of because I had just watched a Jessie Gender video about the history of transgender characters.
Right. Let's go. Let me try to remember where. Oh, it's here.
And then that led to me down a bit of a Nintendo rabbit hole that I'll talk about later. But oh wait, are we at the? Yeah, okay, we're at an outpost.
I just wanted to go vote for Emissary.
Yeah, same. I was like, are we sure this is an outpost island? Yes, okay. There we go. Watch a Reaper come up, like, right after.
No.
But, well, you know what?
Oh, we can just sell the stuff we have, by the way, and dive to locations for this voyage.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea. Let's do that. Because we have, like, barely anything anyway, so...
Yeah, we just have a couple things to sell off, right? Or what did we actually get? Like, one or two things?
Like, a chest with a couple things in it, and then a skull randomly on the ground.
We can just probably pile that all into one chest. Alright.
Yeah, I think I think there's one free slot in the chest, and then we could just put the skull in it, so... You can just
for me.
Do that while I turn the ship, perhaps. While it's still anchored, of course. So we can get out of here easier, and also keep an eye on the map, just in case there is a Reaper surprise.
Just gonna hop over the Sovereigns over here. Do that.
Okay, well...
If you want to, you can even just get going. We didn't vote on the voyage yet. Here, you know what? Let's save some time. Let's go put down a voyage, and then...
I mean, I thought we already did. Or I did, anyway.
Did I not vote for it? Maybe I didn't vote for it. You're right, I didn't vote for it. There we go.
Okay, awesome.
Alright, do you want to scope out those islands, and maybe even just shove off while I run this to the...
Yeah, because then you can mermaid.
Sovereigns? Yeah, exactly.
Alright, Captain.
If you find a destination, you can just shove off, and I'll meet you back on the ship in a couple minutes.
Aye, I'm on it.
Right.
I might need a little help with one of the islands, but I'm just gonna get the...
Yeah, but as long as you can find one to go to, you can just start sailing that direction, because the other one shouldn't be too
Or I could just start sailing now.
Right, but you don't know which direction you're headed.
It'll teleport me anyway, so...
Oh, that's right, yeah, we're diving, that's right. Okay, yes, you're correct. Did you choose to dive to location when you put down the voyage? Or to sail?
Think to sail, so... Okay, well...
I'm already at the Sovereign, so we can scratch that and just, be right back.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
I think we might as well just re-roll the voyage at that point so we can dive.
I did see a funny comment online that there was a missed opportunity to call it Link's Tales Echoes of Wisdom. Like,
oh, yeah. Yeah,
inverting the tail character like that.
Oh, they should call this one The Legend of Link. You know, I had a similar thought,
yeah. And then one other commenter on Polygon said, "Can't believe we're getting Zelda as the main protagonist in a Zelda game before those Switch ports for the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess we've been hearing about for around 6 years. Don't get me wrong, this looks great, and I'll play it, but damn does Nintendo know how to surprise people."
Yeah. Alright, so I canceled this voyage if you want to vote to cancel. I'll just put a new one down so we can dive to it.
Sure.
That'll save some time.
Yeah.
Alright. Voyages...
Voyage of Legends and Voyage of Legends.
You got it? Okay, cool. Alright, there we go. That'll save some time.
The plan would have worked. It's okay. It was not very inconvenient at all. I'm just checking for Reapers.
I know.
And I'm so sorry to everyone in chat for the lag and audio issues during the stream. I really am trying to break the grip that TikTok Live Studio has on me, because it's a shitty, closed build of OBS. And they're very strict about stream keys, though, so it's very, very hard to do third-party. And I tried using Parallels, as you know, last night, because I asked for your help with the social part, but for some reason, Xbox on ARM, in Parallels, doesn't have a social button. I don't understand. You're trying to promote Windows 11 on ARM, Microsoft, but you're going about it very idiotically. And you're saying that Parallels is the official way to run Windows on Mac Silicon, now that Boot Camp is toast. But, well... yeah, no, Tech Walled Gardens... Ironically, getting further into the Apple Walled Garden is a bit better for me right now, but the games are still dire. I guess Apple's hoping that this next tranche in the fall with Frostpunk 2, Assassin's Creed, things like that, will actually fix it for them. But they cut out their own knees by ending 32-bit support.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who trusted the iTunes system to work for the Mac gaming environment, I'm kicking myself because I should have just gotten those games on Steam. And what's even more annoying is that not even some of the games that Valve touted as Mac games when they first started putting Mac games on Steam in 2011 are actually working. Like Portal 1 and 2? Nope. Half-Life? More like Zero Life, because it's not working on Mac. Are you fucking kidding me? The big games that I have installed right now are American Truck Simulator and Counter-Strike 2, because it'll be interesting to see how those play with keyboard and mouse, and also because their Steam Deck app, or no, not Steam Link app, excuse me, for the Mac App Store is terrible. Like, it's very hard to get it to configure right, and I had an issue where it stupidly remembered the images from 2 games that I streamed as a test to my Mac, and then overlay them on each other repeatedly in like an epilepsy fashion. I don't understand what that was about. Because I generally like my tech to work. I can troubleshoot. I'm sure I'll be able to, and someday I'll be able to multi-stream, so I'm able to build an audience outside of the TikTok trap, but like, fuck, the stupid lag that we're experiencing right now, because I've been having audio bother me in my ears, you know how I am with that, while we were getting attacked. Whatever. Anyway, rant over. Then I guess the other big first-party games, excuse me, were like remakes, like Luigi's Mansion 2 and Donkey Kong Country HD, or Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, excuse me.
The Luigi's Mansion one is cool, I guess. I'm not really a big Luigi's Mansion fan. I played both 1 and Dark Moon, which they're now just calling 2, for, I guess, simplicity's sake. I played 1 and 2. I played 1 as a kid, and like I beat it in the afternoon. Was like I didn't like. It was probably one of the first Cannon Cove. We're looking for skeletons.
Right. Got it.
That was like one of the first Nintendo games. Like I remember I rented it and was done with it in like 5 hours or something. I was like, oh, that was okay. Like that was one of my first big disappointments Nintendo wise. And then I played Dark Moon when it came out because it's like, oh, cool, they're making a new Luigi's Mansion, and it was longer and had a much different structure, but I still didn't really care for it. So I've never actually played 3, and I probably won't end up picking up
Luigi's Mansion
HD.
Appears to have had a very shortened development timeline in order to try to be a launch game for the anemic launch lineup of the GameCube.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept, and there are a lot of like cool ideas in there, but I don't know. I never gelled with any of the structures that they tried with it, because Luigi's Mansion 1 is very much I don't want to say Resident Evil, but it's sort of going for that in terms of you're just searching room by room for the next thing to go to.
I never thought of it like that.
But yeah, and then Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon /2 was much more level-based. It's like, okay, you're progressing from one part of the mansion to another in a more like linear fashion. And then Luigi's Mansion 3, I have no idea because I never actually touched it. But I've heard that it's like really good. So maybe someday I'll give it a shot. I just have never really like the other 2 games have left enough of a bad-ish impression to me that I'm like, I don't know about this one.
Luigi's Mansion is the only GameCube I've gotten running on my Steam Deck. It's very clunky so far with how the controls work, which is usually my biggest pet peeve.
You have to keep in mind, I don't remember the exact control scheme to 1. They probably fixed it a bit in the remake, but I remember the like C-stick controls being a little messy and stuff. So that probably doesn't help.
Yeah, the aiming is definitely the problem.
Yeah.
I'll still give it a solid shot, more than like 5-10 minutes, but
that's another one where like if you had a Switch, I would say if you're really interested in trying it, they do have the remake of 1 that you could play on there, but I don't know what they actually changed in that because I haven't kept up with those games that much.
I mean, I still technically have a Switch account, it's just that it's on a console held by somebody else. And so I might check it out on sale or pre-owned or whatever when I am able to get my hands on a Switch 2, because it might not be at launch. It might not be. It might be like, oh, well, I'm... Because with the Switch 1, I bought into the launch hype and got Breath of the Wild at launch, and it was great. And then there wasn't much for a few months there until ARMS and Splatoon 3... Splatoon 2. Yeah. The long day at work. Anyway, and then Super Mario Odyssey. But then 2018 was a bunch of remakes, and that was not great value for money, so that kind of soured me. And then I got a copy of Smash Ultimate, but I just didn't understand any of it. It was too chaotic and confusing for me and my neurodivergence. So I sold it. Then I ended up getting a Switch OLED when that launched, and it was like, oh, pretty. But then the library fatigue happened again.
Yeah.
Because part of the problem is I just don't have the history of attachment to Nintendo that other people do. Like, my first engagement with them was the Wii, and we got, like, 4 games for that, so,
Yep.
I can appreciate a lot of these games for what they're trying to do, but sometimes they're just not in genres that... So I might be like, okay, stop with the retail therapy. Just don't get this at launch, unless, like, Metroid Prime 4 is, like, the best shooter in 10 years, or something.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Retro's always knocked it out of the park with that series, so...
Yeah. I think the thing that kind of made me not like Metroid Prime 1 as much was the insistence on the... I don't know, the aiming just felt a little weird to me. I think it might have been slightly lock-on-ish, or...
Yes, because on the GameCube, you have to remember, that system had one functional analog stick. You know, you're not going to do much aiming with that C stick. So it definitely, in the original GameCube release, it was very, very lock-on based, because the game was always billed as more of a first-person adventure game rather than, they never billed it internally as a first-person shooter. And that was intentionally because they knew this wasn't going to be, you know, a Counter-Strike precision aiming kind of thing. It's more like, hey, know where to shoot and we'll do the rest of the work. And know which weapons to use against the enemies, too.
Okay.
Because you have different elemental stuff going on. And know, like, sort of where to target when. And that's sort of the puzzle of the combat in that game.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's much more focused on knowing what to shoot when and prioritizing what to prioritize and stuff like that. But that was born out of the limitations of GameCube. If they were initially designing that game in a post-Halo world, I can imagine it looking very different.
Oh yeah, right. Because
that game started development in like '99.
Yeah, so this was before Halo rocked everyone's world and showed twin sticks could work.
They were mid to late development when Halo came out. I'm sure they looked at it and said, "Wow, that's doing something different," and you know. But they were stuck with the GameCube, which did not have the luxury of 2 analog sticks. There's no way in hell I'm counting the C stick for that, because that thing... Any game that tried to use the C stick seriously for aiming it was terrible.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. That thing was just... It was like... Like, I remember when the PSP came out and had the little nub, I'm like, oh my god, it's still somehow better than the C stick.
Good gracious.
So you know, that's kind of why that game is like that in some ways, but also I think it does translate the 2D style of Metroid very well in terms of, like, you know, in 2D Metroid, it's not that difficult to, like, land your shots. They give you, especially once you get some of the later beams that have wider spreads to them. So the game's never been about that precision aiming style in 2D or 3D. So I think in that sense, it translates that 2D Metroid style very, very well. And
I see.
Retains the sort of mystique and adventure of it.
Yeah, I'm not...
That's
somewhat...
like, it's
crap!
Kind of,
exploding barrel, dude.
Yep. Like it's kind of crazy how well they nailed it on the first try with Metroid Prime, because they were coming off of 8 years of no Metroid games. The last one being Super Metroid, which is, like, again, like, a masterpiece. And that's the one that people go to when they point to Metroidvanias. It's like, they don't really point at Metroid 1 or 2. Those were very embryonic compared to what Super Metroid did.
Right.
But Super Metroid really, really established what a Metroidvania is. And then they went 8 years without making one, and then Retro just comes out and it's like, here's a 3D Metroid game in first person. Like, a lot of I think the majority of people looked at it and said, this is a crazy idea and it's not going to work. And then it worked insanely well. I think that game has like a 96 or something on Metacritic. Something like that.
Yeah.
It did at one point. And that game just translates that Metroid style so well. I will always gush about that first Metroid Prime. It's so perfectly paced, so perfectly designed.
Oh, I'm dead on the beach still, by the way.
I'm a little far, I think. Yeah, I'm far. Sorry.
It's
I have to
alright.
go back and get some food.
Yeah. There's also, what's good, Max Sanford? Anyway, so, and thank you for the gifts, Wandering Stars Above. I appreciate that. That will make me 2 cents richer for an hour and a half of work. God, with the audio cutting in and out. Anyway, okay, so, I will say that my experience with Metroid Prime has been better than the Callisto Protocol, because while
I saw that came to Game Pass.
Okay, so when you said things about like lock-ons and stuff, that very much reminded me of what that game was originally going for, the Callisto Protocol, I mean. Fuck's sake with the stream. Anyway, basically you softening up enemies with melee and then doing like a really fast lock-on shot that would finish them. That was the idea. It was supposed to be rhythmic, like a brawl, but the enemies were so fucking spongy in that game that it was terrible. Because, like, they would just take hit after hit and then you would be made of tissue paper. And you were locked into a particular way of doing things. You would be an idiot to use the gun. But, with the Game Pass update, they've created a dismemberment mode.
Oh.
That is like
Dead Space.
Yeah, that's literally like, fine. We know you really wanted to play Dead Space.
Yeah.
You really want to play this game
that's kind of funny.
Like Dead Space? Fine, but we're not giving you any achievements because we're mad at you for picking a game mode that is easier. I don't understand when games lock achievements based on difficulty, because then it just punishes people for wanting a particular experience. I get it with, like, I get the whole deal of something like Elden Ring for not having difficulty options.
Yeah, I think it's okay to lock some behind, like, if a game's going for a specific challenge, like, let's say the Mile High Club achievement for Modern Warfare, if you could just, you know, tune down the difficulty and still do it, then I see the value in locking an achievement like that, because that achievement's specifically designed to be like, hey, you need to beat this thing on veteran difficulty pretty much flawlessly.
Though, one caveat with Elden Ring is that apparently, according to a lot of people who played it that were not me, because I got stuck, not necessarily on the combat, just the navigation overload, is that basically the magic class was the easy mode because of how powerful magic was for a while there.
I've always heard. Yeah.
I got through a large portion of the game on bleed katanas, the samurai class, so that was cool. But with the Callisto Protocol in particular, it makes it easier, this mode. I'm gonna try to keep pushing through it more, but it does not make the level design or encounter design any better. It just makes the enemies easier.
One thing I remember hearing is, like, the atmosphere of the game is really good, but the rest of it seemed like it was lacking.
Except for the fact that it's literally exactly the same fucking story of Dead Space. They didn't even try.
Yeah,
or at least
hearing that.
They were trying that, but that was with some idiotic connection to the PUBG universe that they dropped, thankfully.
Yep.
I don't even know how that would have worked, because PUBG has no story. Like, there's maybe some Russian graffiti that you can find, but...
I'm sure somewhere someone is incubating something and trying.
Whatever, I'm done with that game, because Now it's just free-to-play garbage like everything else. But anyway, with the Callisto Protocol, like, okay, so the part that I got stuck on, and oh wow, somebody actually subscribed to me. Wow, thank you. I really appreciate that. Well, now I gotta actually put up subscription content, because I didn't think anybody would do that. But hey, thank you, Wandering Stars Above. I really appreciate it. Well, that will give me $3. So now I'm slowly building my wealth here.
Wow.
If I go up, if I actually earn, if I, I was gonna say something like a stick of beef jerky. If that,
still very appreciated, but
yeah,
that's more a commentary on the internet at large.
And how hard it is to actually make a side hustle. But I'm just doing this for fun, basically, and to build my profile. But well, if I make any more than $10, then I'm actually withdrawing and making income, which means that I'll have to report it to my ethics office because they're sensitive about any side hustles that employees have. Whatever. But I doubt that it's a sustainable enough thing where I'd actually have to report it on my taxes. $3.02. Thank you. Okay, well, I really appreciate it. So, anyway, so there was a lot to talk about in the show. Man, where to... well, I mean, I'm really happy that people are getting Turok, and I'm gonna be excited for the scenario where...
Maybe I might look that up, because that's the version of that game that I'm nostalgic for, even though it's empirically the worst version to play, especially with the Night Dive remasters existing. It's another case of, like, Perfect Dark, except somehow worse, because the original Perfect Dark, I think, would still be reasonably playable. I should charge my N64 controller and load that up, because I remember even as a kid, that Turok game controls like absolute garbage on the N64. I really want to try it now. You know what? I probably will try it. Instead of playing Metroid Prime tonight, I'm going to put on Dinosaur Hunter.
You know what? I should load up the Night Dive remaster on my Steam Deck then, because that's been controlling pretty well.
Decision. I'm going to make the comedy decision and see how far I can get in the N64 version.
Well, I've never really had a problem with the Night Dive combat, because after getting rid of the fog, the enemies are ridiculously easy in a lot of places.
Yeah, the thing is that game like runs well and like plays pretty well. It's just the controls get in the way so much. Like, even as a 9-year-old or whatever, whenever I was playing that on the regular, and I was also playing it in a world where Halo existed, so like that didn't do it any favors, because a better world at the time was already possible with dual stick controls. But I still played it because I had an N64 and was actively playing it in the early to mid 2000s.
Wow. Well,
the game rentals for it were dirt cheap at the time.
The thing that made me bounce off of the Xbox version. Thank you for following me, by the way, Chakitapan Chonchito. I hope I'm not butchering that. Thank you. I appreciate all the support that people have given tonight. Anyway, the reason that I bounced off of the Night Dive Xbox version was the same reason that I bounced off a lot of games, and that the thing that messes with my neurodivergence, the map design. I just cannot with the keys.
That's just the style of FPS up until about Half-Life, really.
But now that you're playing it again, you can help me with that, hopefully.
Yeah. That's the thing, is those games just... They all spun off from Wolfenstein, which Doom leaned even heavier into, where it's just like, let's just make everything labyrinthine and lots of key cards and lots of hidden secret walls.
Yeah.
Which I do, like, there is a space for that, but I tend to lean like, that's kind of why I'm not really that into these newer boomer shooters that are coming out, because I was never that into them in the first place. Like, I played them because that's what was around besides Halo and stuff, because, you know, my friend's older brother was a big PC gamer. I would go over there and play, like, you know, Quake and Unreal and stuff.
Yeah, the first-person shooter genre was still kind of getting out of that whole
once Halo
phase.
came around for me, it's like, okay, this is the style of shooter that I actually prefer.
Like, only a few years earlier, people were calling them Doom clones still. Anyway, sorry, continue.
And like, even the first Halo has some remnants of that design. I can remember, like, that, you know, if you look at...
Oh, the fucking library.
Assault... Well, the library is actually fairly linear, but it's more just long. But I'm thinking of, like, the Assault in the control room level, which is a little bit labyrinthine, and the one in the Nightfall level.
I was more just thinking about being turned around. And not knowing where to go.
Inside the Covenant ship. That one's a little bit... Like, those are the ones that I look at.
Oh, yeah, okay, that one. I know what you're talking about.
There's still a little bit of Doom level design going on here.
I see.
Whereas I think by Halo 2 they fully shed that and found their own style.
Yeah, that's very fair to say.
Yeah.
I will be very interested as well in playing the multiplayer on the Switch. Probably split screen with my friend if I can get the chance to go out and see him. But I'm probably... There's a lot of things I'll need to play with him because it's been so long. Like, probably I'm gonna need a lot of help with F-Zero while he's over there charting on F-Zero 99.
The N64 one?
Or not the N64 one. Just the original SNES one. That's what I need help with.
Yeah, that one I'm not as well versed in because the N64 one's the one that I only played like a ton of. So I can't give you too much help with the original F-Zero. I played it, but not in the way that I played F-Zero.
Yay, rank 2!
GX. Nice. The GBA F-Zeros are also not bad. Like, so the only F-Zero I really haven't played that much actually is the Super Nintendo one.
Conveniently, that's the one I need help with, but that's okay. I'm sure he'll be able to help me.
If you ever want to play F-Zero X or, well, emulate GX or something, the GameCube one. Like, I've played plenty
I've heard
of
that's the one that's really good.
Yeah, I actually prefer F-Zero X. Thanks.
Sorry,
I
was trying to grab something else.
I prefer F-Zero X. I'm not really sure why. I think there's a little more beautiful simplicity to it. GX gets a little, like, into the weeds with, like, tuning your stuff and really focusing on precision. Whereas F-Zero X, I found myself able to just kind of learn the course and kind of wing it a little more. And GX is also incredibly punishing. Like, it is a super difficult game. After, like, the third chapter, I remember just banging my head against that for hours as a kid.
Oh boy.
Whereas with F-Zero X, I found a Chest of Sirens song.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Bring it on over, I guess.
I guess we can... So, I think this is the one that slows us down and marks us on the map. I think. Let me double check.
Okay, so... At this point, we've gotten into the... Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you about. The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool to play.
That's 4-player co-op, right?
Yes, and that version is less of, like, a beginning-to-end adventure, I think, and more, like, randomized, just kind of going through randomized dungeons.
Oh, that'll be so cool.
Yeah. I actually have very little experience with that. I remember I set it up to play one time in college, you know, like, just emulating it with 4 controllers. And 4, like,
is that the one that had, like, where you could have 4 Game Boy Advances? Yes. Or am I thinking of something else?
Yes, that's the one where you could link together 4 GBAs. Although the thing is, I didn't really do much of the link cable stuff on the GBA in particular because, I don't know, just not that many games supported it in interesting ways. Like, most of the link cable stuff I did was just for Pokemon.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
That was the biggest use case.
Yeah. So, like, I remember doing some link cable stuff with, like, Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mario Party Advance, that kind of stuff, but I never really did it with Four Swords, which is why when I was in college, I was like, oh, here's a Zelda game I never really played, because I had A Link to the Past for GBA, but never did the link cable stuff with Four Swords. So I did play it once, and I remember it just being a bunch of randomized dungeons. So it's not quite the same as the Four Swords Adventures game, which came out on GameCube. That was the game that required, like, you to have a GameCube and four Game Boy Advances hooked up to it. Yeah, that's the one that has a very complex setup to it, where, again, I did it once, because you can emulate it, and it's actually not that hard to do so. So I have played through Four Swords Adventures, because we did that in college, but I've never played I've never played extensively the one that they just put out. So maybe I'll give that a shot.
Is this the riddle one? I'm not sure.
No, we're on the treasure chest.
Okay,
I dug
good.
up one of them. And I'm close to finding the next one, I think.
Yeah. Let me check my compass. I'm on the western shore. Derp. You've been way more on point than me this game because, well, I don't know how you're doing with the heat wave. Oh, well, hey, I reversed my fate of bad luck there.
Yep. You're one step ahead of me there. I was just getting to the location.
I was like, oh, there's the giant rocks there.
But yeah, you were saying about the heat wave. I literally have my AC blowing in my face right now.
Oh, wow.
It's still like 85 degrees here.
Ugh. Yeah,
it was like 100 today. I contemplated going to Six Flags for the water park, but I got up kind of late because I got up just in time for the Nintendo Direct. And then by the time that was over, I was like, I don't feel like driving to Six Flags today, so I might do that tomorrow morning. Just go to the water park for a couple hours.
And the last time I went to Six Flags, I was still married, and they still haven't added any new rides or water park stuff since then.
Six Flags America tends to be one where... Okay, well, you bring that chest back. I'm going to go for the last one. I forgot we still had one more. Sure. Six Flags America, unfortunately, is one of the ones that tends to get neglected. We'll see how that goes, because they actually just announced the closure of the Cedar Fair merger today. So we'll see if anything changes management-wise. Yeah. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with my Legacy Pass, because remember, I have the pass where I only pay $3 a month for it to get into any Six Flags park.
Wow!
So I wonder
before they did all the stupid restrictions, right?
Now, if they somehow, I'm not expecting this to happen, but if they somehow honor that and let me get into Cedar Fair parks for the same price, that'll be amazing.
That would be a steal.
Not counting on it, but they so far have not canceled it on me. I've had it since 2012, so
okay.
They so far have honored it for a dozen years without any issues. So I'm like, maybe they'll let it keep sliding through this merger, and I'll just, I just won't say anything and see what happens.
Mostly, I've been watching reviews of the preview of Tiana's Bayou Adventure and trying to dodge right-wing trolls who hide their titles. But, like, that looks like a very good ride.
Yeah, I mean, there are some aspects of the original Splash Mountain. Obviously, it's just at this point, it's just a form of nostalgia, right? That's just like, I really like the original Splash Mountain, but I understand. They need to move on from it, and Disney does not want to keep associating themselves with Song of the South at this point. I get it. I still, like, Zippity Doo Dah was one of my favorite songs as a kid, and I loved its inclusion in that ride, but I understand, at this point, I understand it being a problematic fave, and I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to fight in this culture war about it, so... But I've heard some pretty good things about Tiana's. Hopefully I make it down there at some point and check it out.
The few criticisms that people are making that are logical and not based in racism are, at the very least, like, things that can be kind of ironed out later. There's some people complaining about, like, why is the drop so intense when there's not really a story, but, like, Disney's
the thing
whole...
with the original the original Splash Mountain had a really, really good build, and it had some like false, it had some really good like bait and switch things in it too, and so I understand that because Splash Mountain got a reputation and people are upset about its removal besides the culture war nonsense because it was such a well executed ride. So Tiana's has a lot to live up to, just in terms of
impossible expectations and
quality
all that.
of ride. Yeah. So as long as they can make it still like a quality ride, that's good enough for me. And it seems like they've done it. So I don't have too much to get upset about.
Well,
and I'm just glad I made it down there, one more time as an adult when I went in 2018. I made it a point to ride it then because I'm like, in 2018, I'm like, this ride's probably not long for this world. Like they will eventually excise all the Song of the South stuff.
Except for in Japan, where they don't give a shit about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's
and it's owned by another company, so they can't really do anything about it anyway.
Yeah, there's not much reason for them to get rid of it in Japan. I mean, they still very well could at some point, just to kind of have a more relevant IP in there. But
that would be an Oriental Land Company decision, not a Disney decision.
Yeah.
And when it comes to people's other complaint about the story, I kind of get it. But it is a little bit creatively restricting that it's after the movie and Dr. Facilier, who would be an amazing villain to lead people up to the drop with, on the other side, which would be fucking rad, isn't there because of canon reasons. Like, that's the same thing that sunk Galaxy's Edge hype for me.
They have to find somewhere to place it, and they decide to place it in the most like boring place possible, or like unconflict ridden place.
Yeah, all you're doing is hunting for critters. But like, seriously, the only reason that I could tell you anything about what kind of happens in Splash Mountain from my faded memories as a kid is because my dad, as a kid, he had the original books. Like, that was not controversial at the time.
My dad remembered seeing Song of the South in theaters because they would still re-release it in the 70s when he was growing up. He's like, I used to love that movie.
Okay, so I think that it was on TV one time, and my grandma recorded it onto a VHS tape because I don't believe there was ever a home release. Or maybe there was. You know what? Maybe there was, and that's how I had it.
In the 80s.
Yeah, I think my Nana got it back then.
Or early VHS.
Early VHS. Sure. That's exactly how we saw it. I just was like...
Although,
with how far they buried this movie, I completely forgot if it was an official release. But I know
it could have been
that
unofficial, honestly, because I had a bunch of racist as hell Looney Tunes cartoons as a kid on like an unofficial VHS. It's the kind of thing where, like, as a kid, I didn't really think about it.
Right,
and then, like, as an adult, I'm like, reading about the banned Looney Tunes cartoons, I'm like, oh, I've seen that one. It's like, oh, I saw those all on, like, a bootleg VHS.
Yep.
That, like, my aunt bought me.
Everything in your childhood is ruined now.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
The thing is,
same as always.
There's at least one of those cartoons that I think holds up pretty well, aside from one moment. There's one moment in it that was very, very bannable. But
Oh, yeah, I think I know the one you're talking about, where, like, Bugs Bunny stretches his face or something like that.
No, it's the one with, I'll say the character design in the one I'm thinking of is also very bannable, because it is like a black caricature, but...
Oh, it kind of think...
It's like it's a very stereotypical black kid caricature guy running and chasing bugs in an Elmer Fudd style way, but he's like also a unique, character.
I see.
And and as a kid, I didn't view it through a lens of like, oh, they're depicting the dumb black stereotype. I thought of it, oh, it's another dumb hunter chasing him like Elmer Fudd. I didn't think of it through a racial lens.
Oh,
but then
yeah, no.
As an adult, I'm like, okay, maybe they're, I think it is much more racially tinged when you look at it that way, or can be interpreted that way.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know how much they were I don't know how much that interpretation is putting it through a modern context, because the main animator on that one, I think, was Bob Clampett, who was fairly, like, ahead of his time on a lot of those issues. But again, there's only so ahead of your time you can be when you're making cartoons in the 1930s and 40s.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still gonna catch up to you. Yeah.
Eventually, everything is going to age poorly, in some way.
Because if you look at, like, another of those band cartoons, again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm super defending these or anything.
No,
but they are culturally relevant, and they have some redeeming qualities. If you look at, like, Coal Black and the Seven Dwarfs, for example, that's one of those ones where you look at it and it's like, oh, on its face, it's like this really, really bad depiction, but, like, there were people praising it at the time, like, oh, this is like, this
really
is
funny
actually a cartoon starring, like.
And actually a cartoon starring black people.
They were not. They were not trying. I guess I can say their hearts weren't in, like, the altogether wrong place, right? For the time, like, because they were doing a lot more than Disney was. Disney was over there making Song of the South. It was all about the glorious sharecropping.
Yes. Well, and I can't
remembering the good old days.
and I can't fault Nintendo, for instance, for being like, surprise gender reveal with Samus. Like, that's not technically a transgender character, but the kinds of transgender characters that were out in the late 80s, early 90s, etc., before the explosion of character creators, was pretty much universally bad. So, like, the fact that they were a bit ahead of their time in that depiction, like, that makes sense from a media literacy perspective.
Like, that's one of those things when you go back and look at old media, and it's like, you find some diamonds in the rough in terms of that sort of stuff. Like, if you look at the original release, the Japanese release of Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, there's, Vivian in that game. Now, the U.S. translation originally handled it kind of poorly, but the original Japanese...
Vivian is Birdo? Is that right? I forget.
No, Vivian's one of these, like, witch ghost sisters, and...
I didn't get very far into Thousand Year Door when I had it on the Wii, so...
It's like the 4th or 5th chapter. It's kind of boring.
And I was borrowing my friend's Wii release,
I don't want to speak too definitively on this because I don't remember very well, and I haven't played the game in like 15 years. But that character is, like, trans, and is presented in that way. Now,
I did not know that.
In the original Japanese translation, or the original Japanese script, like, it's made pretty explicitly clear. And they changed it at the time in the US script and made it a little more, like, ambiguous. Or, like, didn't present it in that sort of framing. And then, just in the most recent release that came out, they sort of, made it more faithful to the original Japanese, because obviously times have changed.
Right.
But if you look at that original Japanese release, it's like, oh, someone at Nintendo was actually thinking about this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, this game is unexpectedly, like, nailing this one particular issue.
And even for the media that doesn't have a ton of problems, that's old, you can certainly find like, new interpretations that really boost why you like the game in the first place. Like, I'm gonna go on a bit of a tangent about BioShock for a second, because today is World Autism Pride Day, and the line, the infamous line of a man chooses, a slave obeys, that really resonated with me, because, well, for one thing, I hadn't had a lot of choices in a first-person shooter. But I also kind of just was living my life to please other people. Yeah. And I still have been for a long time. But, like, the fact that you could go back as well and see, like, oh, with Bioshock 2, I kind of filled that empty vessel of Subject Delta with my own motivations and fears and such to, like, many games today would have a voiced actor for that, and that's not necessarily wrong, but I'm not nearly as, like, oh, boy, mute people in FPS games are boring.
Yeah, trust me, I don't understand the need for everything to be voiced either.
I mean, it's a little awkward in games like say, Half-Life 2, where people are carrying on entire conversations without you, but...
I do like filling in the blanks myself a lot of the time. That stuff. At the very least, I don't mind it.
And, like, at the end of Bioshock 2, which is a far, far better game than any of the other ones in the series, and that's a hot take, I know, but Bioshock Infinite was so big and mad about Bioshock 2 existing and offending the great creator that who's now doing Judas, and it looks pretty much like Bioshock in space, which, like, we'll see how that goes. It looks okay, at least interesting, but seems like there's always been that chasing of the Bioshock dream anyway. But yeah, Bioshock 2 and Bioshock Infinite pretty much have an identical plot, except for all the multiverse crap in Infinite and the slightly more vocal / initially antagonistic relationship between Booker and Elizabeth versus Delta and Eleanor, since Delta isn't speaking obviously and Eleanor is more of a helper along the way. But at the end, after you've actually made more choices about who to spare than either of the other games, and they're much more nuanced, the best ending is if you literally save all of the NPCs and all of the little sisters, which is, well, it's not a hard decision, because, like, you just like in the first game, you get a bunch of little sister gifts that more than make up for any atom difference that you would have had by not saving the girls. But, like, those defense traps that you lay down to fend off waves of enemies while the little sisters are harvesting were such a pain in the ass sometimes. And sometimes I did want to just be like, oh, whatever, I'm just gonna eat your little fish that's in your insides. Whatever, right? But I was good throughout the entire playthrough, and then what happened is, I mean, spoilers for Bioshock 2 for people who haven't played a 14-year-old game that's really good. We really should. Basically, there's a bathysphere that's going to the surface, but the big bad evil girl this time, Sophia Lim, blows it up, and you end up dying in the process, but not before you're brought to the surface by Eleanor, and then she uses her big sister injector to extract your atom from your body, and then put you behind her eyes as her conscience, essentially, because you've done such good things. The tone and how that works how that ends up depends a lot. Like, there's more neutral endings, there's, like, just outright evil, instead of just, like, you're either a goodly savior of all little kids, or you have a nuclear submarine and you're going to war with the whole world. That was such a dumb ending, but they rushed that at the end of production anyway. That was, like, one of those subconscious things that going back to that would be like, oh, for me. Because, again, I felt very able to express myself as this character. And because going back to it now would be like, oh, well, you know, I can be very feminine in outward expression while still having just a generalized personality and consciousness of all different perspectives. Like, that's not how many other people might take away from that, but that's how I'm taking away from it. And even if Bioshock 2 ends up aging horribly for some people sometime down the line, for some reason, or whatever, I'll still be like, yeah, fair, but this also. For me, at least. It's not the worst thing in the world for the things that you like to suddenly be things you not like anymore. Like, I used to really watch The Big Bang Theory to the point I had I had the first 7 seasons on DVD. Didn't sell them for that much because people are who really want that series are generally looking for a complete collection. Also, I'm dead from lightning.
Lol. Oh, okay.
Now I see it as minstrel theater for autism, because they clearly had a character that was very autistic affecting, at least according to the stereotypes at the time, of like very cold and unemotional and logical and know-it-all and that kind of thing. But that was better than nothing for me. That was better than the nothing I got for so long. And even years later, though, there's still so many people who are like, oh, well, this character that's clearly very neurodivergent affecting is not this because some arbitrary reason that the creators used as a hedge. Like how the creators of The Big Bang Theory would, and Chuck Lorre is one of the worst writers of faux diversity in that way, where he just does enough effort to get the credit and then hoists it off onto a co-creator that can take the heat for him. He was just like, well, we're not going to confirm it. And then that was that. It was word of God. We're not going to bother with this because then there would be a bunch of questions. And then people would be like, but you're not being accurate. And they'll be like, but it's comedy. Who cares, right? Well, it's different when you're being the one being laughed at. So I very much get that like the old cartoons needed to go away for a while until we could find good content warnings for them. Like, I think WB handled it a lot better than Disney, where they just were like a couple of texts at the beginning.
To present them, unless it's something. I think there are still some lines there where, like, if there was something out there that was just like really, really, really terrible.
Oh yeah, really terrible. Like, I'm never gonna see Song of the South again.
But even with something like Song of the South, like I think there is some value in putting it there with historical context.
Right, like how Gone with the Wind had a presentation at the beginning.
Yeah,
I never watched that.
Hey, here's what things were like.
But that's what happened.
Then. Here's why it was this way. Things have changed, but this is still a piece of art.
Or even just a entirely running commentary.
It's time. Yeah, like I think there's still plenty of value to be had there, and I do like the way Warner Bros. Does it, where it's just like, hey, this stuff's pretty bad. Just brace yourself. Know what you're getting into. Here you go.
Right. You know? Right.
Like I think there is some level of giving a viewer or prospective viewer some agency in watching something like that.
Instead
of just categorically locking it away and saying never to be seen again.
Or the people who are supposed to be learning from it being like, well, this was just awful, and then dismissing it entirely.
Because someone, I don't think the majority of people, like, I don't think watching old Warner Brothers cartoons is going to make someone watching old Warner Brothers cartoons with those, very, very old stereotypes. You're not gonna look at that and say like, oh, I'm a racist now. I think these are these are what turns me into a racist or something.
Any more than, like, Peter Pan
yeah.
did with its Native Americans. Yeah. I actually argue, I mean, obviously the stereotypes were pretty bad, but there was a different type of bad stereotyping going on in the remake, Peter Pan and Wendy, which was okay overall. But they said, like, oh, we're going to have an expanded role for we're going to treat the Native Americans better this time. They were in, like, 2 scenes as a tribe. And
treat them better, we mean just not talk about them too much.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just, like, it's an element that's there, and we're not going to actually use that to inform the world building.
That, like, I remember, like, I haven't seen the Dumbo remake, but I remember that being a big thing with that, where they had the crows that at the time were, you know, pretty obvious stereotypes of black people. And it's like, okay, you can either do something interesting with it, or you can just pretend they don't exist.
Oh, no, I'm dead. From lightning again.
Oh, welcome. Yeah, I almost died from that. And to my understanding, what I remember reading is like, yeah, they just pretty much said, okay, the crows are just not an element anymore, or not a big element.
Yeah, or at all. Yeah, they were not in the remake at all.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure if they were just not in it much or just not in it, but yeah.
And then they tried to add more depth to the story with the little kids or whatever, and the circus itself was pretty cool. But yeah, it was the first of a long string of forgettable remakes that were just put out there to get the internet to shut the fuck up about the plot holes in Beauty and the Beast, for instance. Like, I don't think that media literacy is entirely dead, but seems like meta-analysis is very hard for many people, where it's like, oh, they just dismiss a movie based on one thing that doesn't make sense, or a video game. Like, I'm not like I used to be, where it's like, oh, this old game is bad because I'm frustrated with it. There are definitely elements of all stuff that can age well or poorly, controls-wise or anything else. Which leads me to what I want to talk about after we get back on the ship and stuff, but we'll see. Anyway.
I was going to say one more thing on media literacy. I think to some extent that's kind of always existed, because I remember like hearing people talking about like the old Star Wars movies and not really getting aspects of that in the 70s. And those are the most like black and white things to ever exist.
Yeah.
So I think to some extent that stuff's always existed, and just I think the internet amplifies those more and lets, you know, because when you see someone with a bafflingly terrible opinion about something, it's like, okay, we can all point and laugh at them now because we have the internet.
Yeah, that's true.
That stuff, I think to some extent that stuff's always kind of existed.
for the fan stuff in like the 70s, that would have been harder to disseminate anyway, because of like fan forums basically not being a thing until much later. And also being on like newsletters and zines and things where they were speculating about Darth Vader. So
and they didn't have sites like, you know, TV tropes to endlessly theory craft and like come up with a ton more nonsense over time.
I mean, you know? I get it, because like TV tropes and stuff. Well, also the fact that I'm or at least an aspiring author, means that oftentimes I get a little bit cynical about how the sausage is made in storytelling, and I'm like, oh, this is so cliche.
I gotcha.
Thank you. Lightning is just really out to get me today. Specifically me.
Because I remember when TV tropes first sprung up in the mid-ish 2000s, I thought it was really cool. It's like, oh, we can finally like properly categorize it.
Again with the lightning!
God, what is happening, dude? Are you just like made of metal or something?
Well, I am. You know what? Actually, I think it might have been a bad idea to have my sword out. But I'm dead again.
Oh, I didn't. Oh my god!
Time in a row.
Brutal.
Brutality!
What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So when I was a kid, I was like super into like the minutiae of TV shows and stuff. And I get overanalyzing that. But I think when TV tropes, because I remember I used to be on this site when I was like 8 or 9 years old, editing stuff called TV to Me, which later turned into TV.com.
Oh.
And it was, I used to be one of those people. I used to get SpongeBob VHSs and Yu-Gi-Oh VHSs and look for like animation errors.
Oh, well.
And so, again, as a bored 8-year-old, I was doing a lot of that stuff. And then when TV tropes came along, I'm like, oh, this is great. We can do, this is, a much more interesting way of being able to categorize all this stuff. But then it just becomes so much where people get so into the weeds with it. I think that site was one of those ones that just spins itself in circles around the same things over and over.
It's like a lot of fan discussion on games too, where
it's like
there's so much focus on graphics or frame rate.
I just can't even look at this sort of thing anymore. I just need to like completely divorce myself from any of what you guys are talking about over in this corner. I'm just gonna enjoy things on whatever level I want to enjoy them and not look any deeper.
I wish I had an ability to just shut off a train of thought like that. It's tougher when, like, as one person did, they booed me in person for an unpopular take, but I was able to brush it off, and even more acerbic online comments like, oh, you must have been in a mental institution, because they assumed by the pitch of my voice I was autistic, which, yes, that's correct. But you also did that with a stereotypical assumption, which is true that autistic male-bodied persons have, on average, a higher-pitched voice. Therefore, a high-pitched male-bodied person saying something you don't like must be an autist who cannot get it and was crazy or something like that. Like, that stuff is a little harder for me to brush off, but, like, I'm not the way I was when I was a teenager trying to emulate the Nostalgia Critic because I thought his reviews were the greatest thing ever, or, like, getting into that whole, the prequels suck, when actually they do have their flaws, but, and it was a little sad to finish Attack of the Clones without my now ex-girlfriend. Whatever. Relationships, movies. It's nice to share movies with someone, but I have to get past the idea that seeing a movie by myself is somehow sad, or I'm not going to really watch those anymore. Most likely.
Hey, I've been doing that as long as I've had, like, the ability to get to a theater on my own, even before that.
The other problem for me is definitely analysis paralysis, as I often just give up on trying to find a movie or game that I can really commit to and get maximal enjoyment for the limited amount of time that I have, and then just end up binging YouTube. But speaking of retro things that are that have aged interestingly. Okay, so I found this out while on my little rabbit hole for research, but someone discovered the earliest Nintendo commercial in the United States on from
1980. Yep.
I cannot get anything over on you when it comes to these things.
The Video Game History Foundation. Yeah, I follow them on Patreon.
Oh, wow.
That as soon as it was posted. Yeah.
Cool. That is very, very cool. I'm very happy things really like the Internet Archive exist, and that they're allowed to continue to operate for now under library archival exception in the Copyright Act that Nintendo has opposed for so long.
Yeah, the dude who runs that place, Frank Cifaldi, I actually talked to him for like the 15 or so minutes at PAX a couple of years ago.
Wow.
Cool dude.
You gotta film some of these conversations, because they're really, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
But like, okay, so for those people who don't know, Nintendo originally released their Game & Watch handhelds in 1980, I want to say.
Through 80s was their heyday.
Yeah, through
Early
a
to
partnership with the toy maker Mego, which I didn't even know existed until I found this article. And Nintendo still had branding on the front, but like Mego was on the back. But Mego had branding on the front.
Remember, this was pre Donkey Kong Nintendo. The Nintendo name really didn't have much impact on its own at the time. Because in Japan they were primarily a toy maker and they were virtually non-existent in the US. They just had very limited releases at the time.
Right, so they needed partnerships to get in the door at retailers.
And
this now non-existent toy brand Mego was the way to do it. And that commercial is like very 80s tech commercial energy, where it's like people are being very odd with tech but in endearing ways. Like how are you keeping up with the Commodore? 'Cause the Commodore is keeping up with you. And then just like people are randomly doing things out in real life.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like it's such a different style of marketing than you're used to from a Nintendo style product.
Very earnest, very silly on its face, but like very interesting.
It reminds me of like early NES marketing where they really didn't know what to do with it. They just had a thing to try and sell, and
then they attached a plastic robot that was very useless.
Yeah.
But like now Nintendo's the villain in a lot of cases, like how they just took down so many freaking Gary's mods. It's like, what?
I mean, that's just, you just have to expect that from them, unfortunately. It's that's what they've always been about. They've always been very, very hostile to that area.
To the point of nerfing their own free marketing for their stuff. Because they're Nintendo and they're Kings of the Walled Garden. And that's kind of... Or they're kings of their own blue ocean, actually. And that's kind of part of the reason that I have been hesitant to really get into, like, Switch stuff and keep being back and forth on selling things. Because, like, well, that Switch Lite would be really cool if I was like, well, it's probably not going to fit in my life. And Nintendo's restrictions on so many things. Like, I would not be surprised if the Nintendo Switch 2 was like, well, we have 128 gigabytes internally, and the microSD slot. Have fun with that. Because, like, microSD cards have definitely gotten a lot cheaper. Like, that 1 terabyte one that is in my Steam Deck is still holding strong.
Yep.
Hasn't had any failures or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a 512 one in my Switch, and it's been great. I've never needed more storage for it.
But that's an extra forced expense, and it's not going to be as fast as the internal flash memory. It's just not. It's not even going to be as fast as a cartridge. Because the game's just there on the cartridge and can load from the cartridge. Like... It's just one of those things where it's like, well, we're Nintendo, so you'll pay what we tell you to pay. And if we skimp out on things, like storage, then tough. You know, suck our mushrooms.
Yeah. That's
we're
always
Nintendo.
Gonna be Nintendo's way, though. They will cut costs wherever they can. Like, they always are very, very price conscious with their products. They never release anything...
At a loss,
really high,
Because I think, like, the Series X, for instance, costs, like, $599 to make?
I remember hearing, 500 something when it first launched. I don't know where it's at,
The Series X, or the Series S, excuse me, would probably have cost a little bit less than that, based on the fact that its die was basically rejects from the Series X manufacturing line in an attempt to save on costs that way. But, like, clearly they haven't gotten to the point where they wanted to lower the prices much. Because, because, like, they're adding 2 terabytes of storage to this thing and to another. The multiple SKUs is very meh at this point. Like I would be more convinced if they actually had say a bespoke Indiana Jones bundle for the holidays with a vinyl wrap, because like you have this amazing idea to try and save on manufacturing waste.
They really haven't leaned into any of that. It's so weird how like they really haven't done many variations of the Series X. I wonder if that's just some weird manufacturing pipeline issue, or just they don't sell well enough. Because like they lean much into the controllers much more. They put out these special edition controllers, which maybe that's just much easier to handle production wise.
Probably. Because you can just color the plastic molds for a controller much easier than a console. Yeah. But then they have the solution to that, which is to make a vinyl wrap.
Exactly, and they started doing that and then just haven't seemed to follow it up at all.
Well, that's just their efforts on consoles in general, because clearly the reason why third-party is... Microsoft clearly had the arrogance that they thought that third-party developers would just follow them. But third-party people are holding out until they can squeeze Microsoft out of every ounce of the... out of every dime of the commission that they don't want to pay. Like, they know they have Microsoft over a barrel on the own your games and stream them in the cloud stuff, so they're negotiating really hard for the existing games, and then just not porting games from PC to Xbox, even though Microsoft literally makes it a minutes-long process to do so. Because the consoles are not selling, because Microsoft burned down Xbox for a while to stay warm. I do think that the hardware will be fine, and I do think that they have the best exclusive lineup of this year. I'm sorry, Nintendo, it seems like you got some bangers, but...
Yeah, I think if Prime 4 was coming out this year, I would be willing to argue for Nintendo on that front, and I still might say that they're pretty close, but yeah, Xbox actually seems to be having a decent last half of the year.
Right, other than, murdering the entire studios because money.
Yeah, I mean, just purely if you want to look at it in just a vacuum of what games do they have coming, regardless of any external things going on, like just in terms of games, with Indiana Jones,
Avowed,
like that Starfield DLC, I guess, if you want to count that.
I mean, a lot of times they count updates and DLC, so we will too.
They've got stuff coming fairly soon.
I mean, that'll be hopefully a breath of fresh air for Starfield.
I'm really impressed with how Nintendo is handling their live generation, though. Like, I mean, a new Mario and Luigi is pretty much the last thing I would have guessed from them.
I mean, I also don't think...
Alpha Dream's been dead for 5 years, so it's like, where would that have come from?
I'm also just... in general, it's like... They are...
Oops.
Oh, we can drop anchor then.
Oh wait, yes I did. That's right. I got the treasure.
Okay.
It was an Ashen chest.
Anyway.
Alright, and our last thing is on Discovery Ridge, so let's head there, I guess. By the way, I'm good to keep going for a bit. I really don't have anything to do tomorrow.
Sure, same here. Yeah, I'm good to keep going, talking about whatever.
We'll get this last chest on Discovery Ridge and probably cash out after that.
Yeah, and then I'll cash out with the $3 that I've got.
Yeah.
Cha-ching! I'm rich! Anyway, but like the equivalent for me of the gaming, of the Capcom decision that's just so baffling is why didn't Microsoft just bite their tongue for 1 quarter until Game Pass at the end of 2024 would deliver a growth level that would justify investment in smaller studios to build loyalty like Nintendo has.
It just that's just one of those puzzle pieces where the puzzle pieces just don't seem to fit together. It's like, okay, you seem to have a pretty strong lineup for this year. Why not keep Tango and Arcane and everyone else open and let them do another project and put that on Game Pass and see where that goes. Why not?
Right.
It just really feels like they just like are dropping, like they're just not sticking to the plan that they had when they were making these studio acquisitions. Or maybe they are. Maybe the plan all along was, if we really just want that gold mine of Bethesda, and all these other studios are dead weight to us. Maybe that was kind of the approach of like, unless these guys can deliver some breakout hit on their first try, maybe they're just gone. Which is shitty and unfortunate.
The approach of Sony is focusing on short-term stuff with Marvel games and a handful of others while they fight their
proven to work. Like,
yeah, at least that's been proven to work. But like, I'm going out. I'm cooking here. Microsoft has always been about the pivot. But for the past 10 plus years, it's felt like they've been flailing to try and keep the ship afloat. Apple keeps saying that the... Sorry, no, keep going.
Yeah, I was going to say regarding Microsoft, like, it feels like they keep coming up with plans, and when they have these new things that they're trying, I'm like, great, that all sounds great. And then they don't end up sticking to it. Like, one thing they have stuck to, through thick and thin, is first-party releases on Game Pass, but everything around that, all of the other
another bait
they make
crate,
around
by the way.
that, okay. Everything else around that, just like, you're pivoting everywhere else, which is throwing people off. And it's like, what do you actually want to do in this space? Do you want to foster developers and keep these studios making quality games that they have been making, or are you just here for the quick cash in with Call of Duty?
Okay,
and increasingly, it's like, okay, I guess if something like Hi-Fi Rush can't turn out to be a success for you, then I don't know what to tell you.
Well, but sidebar, apropos of nothing, what is the figurehead on your ship again? The 3 barrels with the mustaches?
Oh, yeah. So those were like the original player characters in the Unity prototype.
Oh, yeah! You did tell me about that at some point. Okay.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Anyway, so, like, yeah, for that one, they gave 4 years for that to cook.
Yeah. If they weren't satisfied with Hi-Fi Rush, why not, like, I don't know what...
Despite saying they were, and lying to everyone.
But the thing with Tango is, like, if they weren't satisfied with this new IP they were doing, and this could also apply to Redfall, too, and Arcane Austin, I suppose. Okay,
right.
they tried a new IP with Redfall.
Sorry, I set you on fire
really there. You're good. You're good. Why not at least give them a crack with something established? Like, if Hi-Fi Rush didn't work for, Tango, either find an old IP in the vast number of them that Microsoft now has, either find a new IP they can pitch for a new game, or just let them work on something like Evil Within 3. Although I have a feeling they wouldn't want to do that, given that Shinji Mikami had left. So I wonder how much of a factor that would have been. Is like, well, the creative guy, the guy who can get up on stage and say, from the creator of Resident Evil comes this new horror game, that guy's no longer here. We're not interested in doing more Evil Within or more horror stuff. So if
and for Arcane Austin,
Arcane Austin, they had like maybe a Prey, maybe just any other type of like game more in their wheelhouse, because it seems like Redfall had some of that stuff, but not in the way people want.
Like the thing is that Prey, for all the praise that it's gotten now, was a controversial game because it had literally zero to do with any of the story of the original game or the Prey 2 that was canceled, and it was people criticized it. People criticized it as just borrowing the dead skin of an old IP to sell a new game. But now that they've proven that they can reinvent these games, well, they could have easily done that with any number of Microsoft's other IPs that have been gathering dust. Like, I'm pretty sure that a small team that was passionate in Arcane Austin could have made a Crimson Skies game, because, like, genre pivots are not anything new for talented studios. I don't know.
Look at what not Arcane. Look at what Tango had done with Hi-Fi Rush. They went from a studio that was only known for making slower-paced horror games or horror action games, I guess, if you really want to get specific, into, like, a rhythm-based brawler. You know, and they nailed it gameplay-wise. It just didn't translate into what Xbox apparently wanted from them.
Yeah, and when you have an audience of gamers that is unaccustomed to looking deeper than back of the box features, or this is just copying this, whatever, and then executives who are like, we need this to sell like 3 times more than the last thing. And we gotta add all these action elements to this, like with Dead Space 2. I mean, well, more so Dead Space 3, but I can, as much as I do like that game, replaying it on the Steam Deck, I can start to see how the corporate meddling, started to work its way in, because it's very like, oh, you're running out of a hospital from out of the gate. Rather than the slow build-up of the horror of, alright, Chest of Legends, we did it!
Yep.
Not quite as high rank as we would have liked, but you know what? Whatever.
Still have a lot of treasure for it.
Yes. Now we just have to get there alive!
Now the hardest part, making it to an outpost.
Uh-huh.
So I guess we'll do Plunder. It's right there.
Yeah, that's already circled, so we're set.
It's like 7-8 minutes away.
Uh-huh.
We just have to hope for the best.
The only other icon on the map is a red skull thing.
Okay,
that's like the Reaper's...
Reaper's Bounty, yep.
Yeah, Reaper's Bounty. I was gonna say like Reaper's Chest or something silly like that. But I do not see any corresponding Reapers.
Yeah. So we're good for now, hopefully.
Yeah, again, like, the reason that Nintendo has been able to consistently cook with their first party is because they have consistent attachment to their developers.
And they give them the time to work out what they need to get games finished and in a good state.
It's possible that a large part of this...
Not every developer, especially on the smaller scale, has the luxury of doing that. Most don't. But a company like Microsoft should be able to handle that in a better way.
Well,
but it seems like they're just not equipped. They're just not. They're just not. I don't know. Maybe the exact reasons differ from studio to studio, but they just don't have that level of, like, dependability when it comes to that. Because even the worst Nintendo games still have, like, a level of
craft
polish to them that is, like,
charm.
Like, still far above most other studios are doing.
Can we stop at the seapost, by the way? There is some fish and stuff I can sell.
Oh, nice. Okay. We'll see that. It's like, I've played plenty of Nintendo games I would consider bad, but even not coming at it from like in a more of an objective angle, it's like, okay, this is bad, but I can see the developers were trying something, and like, you know, Nintendo gave them the leeway to just go for something.
Right, even
like the latest Mario Golf. I played the latest Mario Golf.
Oh,
I didn't buy it. But I played it with a friend, and I'm like, oh, this is not what I want from Mario Golf game. But they're trying something very different with it, at least.
Right, even the 2018 Wii U remakes that were overpriced, in my opinion, and were not my favorite games, were still, like, as you mentioned, polished. They still had effort put into them. Just that effort was something that I could have gotten for cheaper by buying a pre-owned Wii U and Wii U copies, which maybe I should have done. Because then maybe I could have gotten some DS games on there, being able to play my old Wii collection in HD, that kind of thing. But, you know what? Again, I bought the hype, And I bought the hype because they make good freaking hardware. Like, it's not rocket science. You make good games for good hardware and they will sell. But Microsoft... Okay, so my overall point now is you gotta look at what these companies are. Because even close to 100 years before Nintendo ever touched electronic anything, they were a playing card company. They have always been a game company at heart. With the Sony was an electronics manufacturer first, who got into the game console business out of spite.
And then they were able to nail the hardware in a way that other companies weren't. Like they came out of the gate with like really solid hardware.
But everybody remembers how the PS3 had critical first-party underinvestment for so long. It was basically a Blu-ray player for a couple of years there for a lot of people. It was the cheapest Blu-ray player, which at the time, which is why it sold. But Microsoft, despite having a gaming division, has always been the Windows company. Everything needs to funnel back to Windows for them, which is why they have those stupid restrictions on what you can actually do with your Windows, why they have such a convoluted process for actually upgrading to, like, Windows 11 Pro so you can actually activate it, because your parallel software decided that was the... Oh, wait, is that a shipwreck? Over there in the distance? It seems like it's bobbing out of the water.
Let's see. I don't see what you're
It's Birds at South by Southwest. Not the festival.
I was gonna say, damn.
The Birds remake. Just kidding.
It's a little far out of the way. I know I said it was up to stay up late, but I'm starting to feel a little tired, and I do want.
Hey, that's fair.
I do want to get the Six Flags opening tomorrow,
and I want to get up early to get my place in order for when I have family over.
I also need to play some Turok tonight, so.
Yeah, I gotta play some Turok. Well, okay, I'm not sure if I'm gonna press on with Callisto Protocol, but if I can get through the power... I don't know what any of these areas are called, and I just played it last night, which is, very not good for this game. I might just uninstall it without even trying it again. Yeah. Because I did get farther in it on the harder difficulty.
I got to the install screen, and I was like, maybe I should try this out. Then I looked at, like, oh yeah, I still have the Dead Space remake halfway finished.
Yeah, I can just reinstall the Dead Space remake and have a better game on New Game Plus.
It's close enough to, like, Halloween that I'll probably save that for, like, October or something, because I got to pretty much the exact halfway point where some pivotal stuff happens. I'm like, alright.
Don't remind me that half the year has gone already.
Because I think I dropped it because that was when RPG Mania started with Like a Dragon and Final Fantasy.
Oh yeah,
Persona, which I still
have a bunch of. I still have a bunch of those on my Steam Deck too, like Yakuza, like Final Fantasy VII. Ugh, it never ends.
Yeah. So tonight I'm probably gonna end up playing like a good 5 minutes of Turok, see how that feels to control. Probably bad. And then wash my mouth out with some Metroid Prime, at least play through the intro, which is like 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
That controls.
That makes sense. I will try not to get into a trance of playing American Truck Simulator, but it might just be like, okay, hopefully this job takes 20 minutes to resolve, and I actually get $12,000 for it instead of being fined for every little thing. I mean, to be fair, a lot of that was because I caused multi-car pileups by accident.
That'll do it.
Well, I'm like, wow, and this is the gamified version of this job. I don't know how anybody actually does this for real across so much of the country, but they're very essential to getting our goods to stores on time. One
of my old coworkers at my last job used to be a trucker. He used to told me stories.
Oh yeah, well, at least all the gas costs are covered by your employer for some reason in this game, so that you don't end up raging at the fake gas prices. And you can just sleep in a random parking lot in your truck if you really want to. But like it's like some traffic laws are just like whatever if you can just skate by the cars, but then others are like, why is this particular red light $1,200 to run?
Yeah, I wonder if that could vary state by state. Maybe they're actually translating it somehow from local laws or something.
Yeah, you know what? That would be a large part of the reason why each state expansion costs $12.
I know some states, like I know Connecticut had a big deal about. Oh, there's another ship parked here. I didn't see them because their sales were up. There's a ship parked here, so we're gonna find another outpost.
Lovely. Okay, I'm gonna mark it. The next outpost is Ancient Spire.
Spire, right? Yeah.
Ship sight.
They just said ship sighted.
Oh
right,
gosh.
Let's see if they chase us. If they don't chase us, we won't do anything with them.
Well, I'm loading cannonballs anyway, because I don't trust them.
Keep an eye on them. They do.
Not after what happened earlier.
They're probably trying to offload all their stuff right now. Let's just stay out of their way.
Thank you, Wandering Stars, for rejoining the stream, because Insomnia got the better of you. We're almost about to finish, and for the part that you missed, I will be uploading the stream later at History Flights Productions on YouTube. So please go there and subscribe too, to see the whole thing, including the parts that were before you joined and after you left. Anyway.
Alright. I know I'm sailing away from Ancient Spire, but I'm just giving these guys a very wide berth.
Yeah, that's definitely a good idea. They don't appear to have lowered their sails or anything, so it seems like they're
probably
safely
just as scared of us because they also have a high emissary flag up.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I just thought, they're a sloop.
And they're probably selling their stuff since they're talking to the Sovereign, so they're probably scared shitless of us.
There's another one!
Oh, where?
At southeast. The big rock.
Alright, great.
In the distance.
You
kind of jump scared me there with your spyglass there.
I'm looking.
Because
I didn't see them.
The character model did not spawn there, so I just was like, oh! Floating telescope.
I think the one you're looking at is the one we were just at. Because they're at the outpost.
Well, there was definitely two, because they popped up a different name. The other ship was Huiray or whatever.
I didn't see that one. The one that's at the outpost is Wave Runner. So, let me keep looking. I'm still looking for it.
Well, you know, I've been thinking about something else too. It's that the game industry is just so unruly and unpredictable that it's impossible to know what will become a hit, except for Nintendo things.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo has earned that predictability in some ways, though, because they are fairly consistent.
Right.
You know,
some kind of white flare in the distance.
I don't remember what... Wait, white flare.
It's in south.
South.
It's just a white light that is just standing there. It's just standing there, menacingly!
I don't see anything. It might be some sort of lighting glitches. I don't see anything in that direction.
Well, I don't even know what this was. It seems like this is a physical object that has smoke coming off of it, so it seems purposeful, but I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
If anyone who's more knowledgeable about this can sound off in the comments. Oh, and Wandering Stars. So I have a whole playlist of hours and hours and hours of these live streams in the past. Unfortunately, I think one or two of them are lost media now because the downloads corrupted from TikTok Live Studio. Again, I'm trying to break away from their stupid bullcrap. Oh, a thing to grab. Can I?
You can get it. That might just be a mermaid statue. I think it's just a mermaid statue.
It's just a green mermaid statue. Can we?
Yeah.
It's like 1 minute. Sorry.
Sure.
Again, thou shalt get sidetracked. But this won't take long.
Yeah.
Might even be able to get to grade... No, probably not with a green. Grade 4. No, probably not.
Not quite.
Finds a random cursed chest on this island. Something like that. Okay, let's slash you.
Right, I'm still keeping an eye on the other ship that's at the outpost.
Oh yeah, good point. I think I can take care of this by myself and then come back.
Yeah, that's why I was a little skittish to stop, but we're a little far away. I can still help you by snagging. Here we go.
Yep, it's...
Right.
Thank you for subbing. It is, SunnyRedemption sailing on YouTube.
Alright.
Anyway.
Now, let's go to the outposts.
Yes, finally! You can actually sell everything and take a victory lap.
Well, the fog's still thick enough that I can't see if there's another ship at the other outpost, so we're gonna have to just barrel on in and find out.
I can try and get a vantage point from the crow's nest.
That's a good point. Yeah, you should probably do that. We should be close enough soon that you can see the outpost, even with the fog. It should be kind of dead ahead of us.
Oh, yeah, the big island off to the left a little bit?
Yes. Probably.
Oh, wait.
Or
not.
It's the only... It's still a few map squares away, so it may not be very visible. Or might be a very low level of detail still.
The other island I was looking at was probably one that
there's a fort nearby.
An island.
Yeah.
Okay. I see... Let's see.
If you can't see anything dead ahead of us yet, then give it
the fog is way too soupy at the moment, but I'm gonna
sometimes
keep it up.
you can see above it from the crow's nest, but sometimes it's just too much.
I see. Well...
Here, let me take a look. Oh yeah, it's too much fog. Yeah. Sometimes the fog's not quite this high up, and you can see through it, but definitely not right now.
One last aside to the chat before I get back to something I was about to say. I would appreciate you leaving comments on our old videos, letting me know what you think, Wandering Stars, and sharing with your friends and stuff like that.
Nice
Anything
comments.
helps the channel. Yes, nice comments!
Constructive comments.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a very good point.
I think there's a distinction to be made there.
That is a distinction, though. As I've said earlier, I think I am getting a thicker skin. It is important to not leave toxic mess.
For my bad takes from the past. That was the old me.
I don't think that there's been enough time for anyone to say that your takes have aged poorly.
Oh, trust me. There's probably been a lot of them.
You know what? Yeah, I'm assuming too much logic on the internet again.
We were just talking about Nintendo stuff like the other week before we knew there was going to be a decent-sized direct.
Oh, a skeleton ship! Fun!
Oh, great. In the fog. That's fun. I had no idea. I can't even see if there's rocks in front of us, even like standing at the front of the ship. You know what?
Yeah!
Now I can see. The fog's clearing a little bit.
I'm just gonna hammer them to death because it seems like
cool.
they're...
I'll get some wood ready in case we need it. I might slow up the ship a bit too so we can properly engage.
Seriously, they're not even trying!
Alright, keep hammering them then. Alright, I slowed us up a bit. I'm gonna steer us towards them with this one. Oh, there's rocks in front of us too.
Oh, finally they try with a cannonball. But that barely hit anything important, so...
Yeah, I'm just steering the ship. Okay, I'll repair.
No, you should... Oh, never mind. It's okay. Let me grab some more cannonballs then.
I wanted to make sure we weren't about to run into that rock.
That's a good point. Always a very good idea to not do that. Okay. Oh. Loading cannonball again. Ugh. Well, you know what? Like we gave the takes we had at the based on the information that we have, which is basically like logical inferences based on leaks, maybe. But sometimes I think that people are so desperate for any nugget of information that they forget to just let developers cook sometimes. You know? Like, these people are human beings too, and, like, that's the most important thing, so as long as they... Apparently I nailed the crow's nest somehow.
I know, if that was a game shot, it would have been completely destroyed.
Well, I think I can arrange that. Let me just,
they're probably almost there. I'm just gonna... put so many...
How do you do that again? Okay. Oh, B for cannonballs. Duh. I'm gonna try some chain shot for a second.
Okay. Here, I'm just unloading the cannonballs on top. Alright,
I'm dead!
Oh no! Okay.
We're both dead!
Quickly respawn. Okay. Wow. That was a twofer right there. That guy earned his pay today.
Seriously? Or maybe it's like, you know what it's like?
That.
Maybe it's like when the grunt kills you in Halo Infinite and he's like,
yeah.
I did that?
Yeah.
What?
Like, wow.
Like, wow. I'm gonna be
let's check the damage,
feted as a hero tonight for taking on humans and actually winning.
Alright, I'm repairing and it should be okay.
Rip.
Repairing.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Ah!
Okay. Did they hit us with something first cannonball? No. Okay.
Well, if they did...
Yeah, they did drop their anchor. They dropped their anchor.
That's what it was.
Raising anchor, then I'll repair.
Alright, now I'm back to pounding them.
Yeah.
Praising.
Alright.
Alright. Oh, there's sunk.
There we go. Alright, let's slow
Time
up the sails so we can see where they are. Ooh, close to great.
I know about where they are, so...
Yeah.
And they're already starting to... Yeah, the ship's turning over. Should be toast pretty soon, and then the stuff... Yep, stuff is floating up now. Well, actually, that's a mermaid, but... The loot should be up by the mermaid very soon.
Yep.
So, if you can bring the ship over, then that would be great.
On my way. Luckily, they made it so that birds actually spawn near the loot, so you can actually see where it is.
Right, yeah, that's a nice quality of life feature.
That helps.
Okay, up we go.
Be repaired.
That is a lot.
Still a hole.
This should more than get us to grade 4, I think. Okay, creative...
on if it's Athena's loot.
Well, I mean... Doesn't Athena just give... rank for everything? So, like, there's a lot of cool stuff. And can this shark leave me alone? Thank you. Ah!
Alright, I'm coming over with the ship.
Alright, please hurry.
Yep.
I don't know how long I can hold out. I may not have packed food correctly! I'm dead!
Alright. Yeah, I just respawned. I'm not quite there yet.
The game's just out to get me tonight, for some reason. I have died more times than any other time that we've sailed in the entirety of SunnyRedemption Sailing's history as a show. Like, what even is this? It's just... Okay.
No, today's just not your day. Alright.
Well, I did get that one treasure chest just before you did, and I pulled my weight too. Other
paid
things.
Dearly for it.
Yeah, pretty much. Shark bait. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, smile.
The
Yes.
mermaid gems at least do count, so those might get us raised for.
You know what? Like
one of them counted. Oh, we're so close.
You know what I should have said? I should have said, "Smile, you son of a."
Alright.
I love that movie so much, and I need to watch it again. I remember my mom telling me that as she saw it as a teenager and could not go to the beach. Like, she just was like, nope.
My mom has a similar story. She was like 13 when it came out. She's like, yeah, that, especially because she used to vacation in very similar places.
I would love to like steal the DeLorean
and stuff.
I would love to like steal the DeLorean from Back to the Future just to go like see the original premiere of Back to the Future or Star Wars or Raiders of the Lost Ark and be like, oh, well, this is the original audience reaction, because you see it on, you know, filmed on YouTube or whatever, and it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, my larger point that I was gonna make earlier. Again, you don't really know what's gonna get popular in the video game industry, so you kind of just try a lot of little things, or maybe some big things too, and see what
you
sticks.
Have to take some big swings. They're not always going to connect.
But again,
you have to stick with your decisions.
These corporations that are part of larger conglomerates are mostly concerned with making immediate money, because Microsoft makes immediate money by basically forcing 90% of the enterprise world to use their stuff. But it's okay because their PC storefront is their PC is otherwise not as locked down as even the Mac. Like, for the Mac, like, that's about as open as Apple is willing to do, and they have all these scary warnings about, like, downloading things from a website. I'm like, I think I know what I'm doing. Thank you. But, like, these kind of, like, WBD, they are Warner Brothers Discovery, and they have gazillions in debt that they have to get rid of. So they were like, well, we have to do this live service game, and then squish the team into making a director's cut version of Hogwarts Legacy. Which, like, instead of doing more with that, instead of making a TV show about that, let's just do more live service games by screwing up multiverses and things like that. It's like, what are you doing? The thing is that everybody wants predictable money by trapping people. That's the thing. Like, I don't know if I told you this, but Adobe got my goat there for a minute there because, like, they said, okay, here's this annual subscription, but tiny print, you're paying it monthly, so you're locked into a contract, basically. And it turns out that the US government is suing them for this. Because everybody thinks that if they can just control the customer, then they have endless money because, well, you're forced to need it. But that's not how video games work. People are not going to be like, oh, well, I need to play this $70 game because it has characters I like.
Yeah, very few games can really get that captive of an audience. There's always going to be alternatives.
Right. And even Multiversus that had everything going for it on paper just is not. The only people who have come close to capturing their audience are Nintendo, and that's because, again, they have just such an immense amount of IP that they've cultivated for so long. That the fact that they're that they're second place in the console race is not a big deal.
And to some extent, some of the bigger live service games, or even stuff like Minecraft, has an audience that, like,
Minecraft, absolutely.
That audience, barring some catastrophic decision making, will never really abandon that game. They're not just gonna leave Minecraft for the newest, hottest building game.
Reminds me that
Minecraft has an intangible element to it that keeps people around.
It reminds me of seeing a post in Our World Building, which I frequent as an author of a steampunk fantasy story myself, or at least I'm about to be. But anyway, the guy built this entire planet in Minecraft. I'm like, wow, this is a very huge mod. When can I download that from the marketplace? Because the only thing I've downloaded from the marketplace is a free Washington, D.C. mod for educators that, like, I use to make points about the Baha'i faith. But anyway, like, these things are not guaranteed, but they also can come from anywhere. Like, this was one guy in his bedroom who built it on Java at first, and then it slowly built for years. And even things like that you wouldn't expect to sell a lot, like the PlayStation Portal just got an update to have more precise feedback on what your touchscreen touches are actually doing. That has apparently been the best-selling PlayStation accessory of all time. I don't remember what article I read about this.
I just feel that's something that I hear that, and it just makes me go like I just don't understand that segment of the market, I guess, because I'm so disconnected from wanting to have a dedicated cloud streaming thing like that, because there are just so many other cheaper options out there.
Laziness wins out, though, sometimes.
I know, but I just don't understand paying that much for that device. It was like $100, maybe. It's like, okay, I understand the impulse buying of that. Because, like...
Maybe it will be when the PlayStation Portal 2 with dedicated storage and ability to play PS4 games
I just still can't wrap my mind around that or the G Cloud device, the Logitech thing. I'm just like... I just don't understand it.
They've had some tempting discounts before, because it's like, oh, get $100 off of everything. But even then, I don't really understand it, because the only thing you could do offline with the G Cloud is run Android games, and I have a Steam Deck for that, if I really wanted to. And for the actual mobile games that I actually played, I have 2 iPads. One for the old games that Apple fucking took away from me, because again, this big corporation that only understands making money in the short term, is just like, well, we're just gonna cut ourselves off at the knees with our gaming audience, because, well, we're still getting a ton of money anyway. And then, who cares about the platform impressions? Wow, you were like floating there for a second and gliding along. This game has been very glitchy. Either that or the Xbox app that again it's forcing me to dig out my laptop for this, and is being terrible. Like seriously, fix this shit, Microsoft. You need to fix the remote play stuff. You just do. Otherwise, I might move to NVIDIA GeForce Now for streaming this game, because maybe that'll actually be stable. But anyway, in conclusion, this show rocked my socks off, and I don't even have a Switch on me at the moment. Because
I mean, like I said when
games.
we texted, I think it's like the best direct they've had in my memory.
Absolutely.
Like, just in terms of stuff I personally want, and stuff because Nintendo tends to have pretty weak stuff coming out at the end of the generation, especially the last two, like the Wii and the Wii U, just were, the Wii had like Skyward Sword in the last year.
Oh yeah.
But so little, like Nintendo clearly was so focused elsewhere. But this is the byproduct of them unifying their development pipelines. It's just like, hey, I think it's both a product of that and the fact that it seems like the Switch 2 is probably going to be backwards compatible, so, Nintendo doesn't lose too much from, like, still focusing on original Switch stuff, whereas in the past it's like, well, we're making a mostly clean break with the next system. It might have backwards compatibility, but it's going to be different in a lot of ways.
Right, like...
so let's focus on the new gimmicks and move on from the Wii, or Wii U, especially, they want to get far away from. But with the Switch, it's like, it seems like with the Switch 2, they're just gonna keep that train rolling. So yeah,
because people
they don't need to like really divert too much development resources. Like, I'm sure they have the mainline Mario team on that mainline Mario for Switch 2. Other than that, it seems like a lot of their developers have still just been working on Switch games.
And like,
there's so many Switches out there. Why would you not keep supporting that? Even if you are moving to the Switch 2, I think Nintendo is actually going to do more of a like cross-generational thing than they usually do too.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas the most they ever do is something like Twilight Princess or Breath of the Wild, where, well, we announced it for this previous console, so we're going to just barely release it for it. But not really focus on it.
Well,
but I think this time around, it seems like they might still just have like, hey, we're going to have a pretty big intermixing of original Switch games still through 2025 at least. And, hey, we're going to have the Switch 2's big coming out. but they're going to let them sort of run in parallel for a bit, probably.
I'm going to yes and you for a bit. This may seem tangential, but I'm pretty sure you'll get my point very quickly. When my immediate family, got tired of using our Wii, we ended up giving it to our cousins, who they got a lot of value out of it. I saw my cousin playing Skyward Sword, and I was like, what is that? That just looks very weird. Because I had barely touched... I had barely gotten past the very confusing tutorial area in Twilight Princess, and I just didn't really appreciate Zelda. Then they upgraded for Wii U, in large part because it had backwards compatibility, and they could just borrow a lot of games for their friends. Then the Wii U, though, they made a clean break to the Switch because they had physical games to sell along with the hardware. More so the case now is that people are trapped by their digital libraries. I know I'm certainly not giving up on Xbox hardware entirely, even if I don't buy a new console at launch ever again, because I have just too many games to give that up.
Like, I have... Part of the reason I'm frustrated by a lot of these games that don't come to Xbox is just because that's where I prefer to buy games, because that's where I just have been... That's been my buying habit since I was, like, 13 years old. I just have the library built up here.
Right, and they purposely wanted to add that continuity.
If the game doesn't come to Xbox, it's like, it's a mild annoyance to me, because I'm like, well, I guess I'll just buy it on Switch or wherever else it comes. I still have options, and I'm not, like, super upset about it. It's more just like, man, I wish I could have all the Ace Attorney games just on Xbox, but they decided not to release one of the collections on there.
I used to want to give myself options by having two consoles connected to my TV, but the Xbox Series X is just a better piece of hardware than the PS5. I'm sorry. It just is, because as a user experience, it gels more with what I want, which is like deep dive menus and customizability and things like that. Luckily, now I have an option that has a different niche in the Steam Deck. But that's eating Microsoft's lunch, as well as PCs, at least on the Xbox side, because Microsoft spread, as Aaron Greenberg said, too little butter over too much bread. Again and again and again.
Yeah.
Will they ever get it right? Who knows? Will they ever be as consistent as Nintendo? Probably not, because every other console maker on the planet has always had doldrums in first party.
I mean, even Nintendo.
And stupid decisions.
Nintendo has those things.
Like, I bet that Sega thought that the 32X would sell a bazillion copies off of, I believe, a TIE Fighter game, like a port of an arcade game at the time, or something like that.
They had the Star Wars arcade port for 32X,
and then
it
Doom,
was a good port, but
which was 32X rushed in like 18 months by and the rights had been bought by a developer who thought that you literally just copied and pasted JPEGs into a game and then they would work. So,
Magic.
Like, there's always been, we gotta rush this game out. There's always been greedy monetization, because, for those who don't know, my vote for the greediest game of all time is Entropia, which is that MMO that I told you about but couldn't remember the name of, that you could earn money to then buy the bullets that would allow you to actually play the game by taking a sweat gun and pulling sweat off of enemies for like 7 cents an hour. Equivalent. And just, like, for some reason I'm really fascinated by NFT games in particular, but that's a whole other thing. Even though I know I'll never play them, and even though they're pretty much all terrible. And the ones that aren't, like, they ripped off somebody else's work. So, of course they're good, because they ripped somebody off. Like, there will always be rip-offs, there will always be scams. The thing is that, you're right, we have more options now than ever before, and so can vote with our wallets to say, you know what, actually, Nintendo, even though your games are good, I'm going to wait, and I'm not going to give you money directly for your hardware. I'm going to wait until it's used at a good price, I think, perhaps, for the Switch 2, unless, again, Metroid Prime 4 is just, like, the greatest shooter of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has potential to be at least very, very good.
Yes, and a very good launch game that will sell Switch 2s.
Retro has not made a bad game in their history.
I don't know if it'll sell as hot as the Nintendo Switch did at launch, simply because it doesn't strike me as like doing something super new. But we'll see how the hardware reveals itself. It's a better Switch, so some people will get it, but others will be like, well, I'm still getting games from my old thing, so they're not going to buy it. Like, before, it was, everybody was starting from zero, except for the people who were insane and bought pre-owned Wii U's just for Breath of the Wild, and cleaned out GameStop that way. But, like, everybody was starting out from zero, and the Breath of the Wild was good enough that it could keep a whole console's library stood up for a couple of months while they figured out how to get new games onto here. On day one, there will be thousands of games to play on the eShop. Much of them will be shovelware for 99 cents or whatever, but I mean, much of it will be good.
That's
too.
How the Switch eShop already is. So.
Right, exactly. That's my point. Is that it's going for such a long time that it has these games, but, like, well, again, we'll see how it all shakes out eventually, but it seems like we're just honestly, everyone's eating good in late 2024, early 2025 because of, like, delays upon delays and stuff like that. Meaning that the games that actually come out are really good. Except for things like Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, which apparently has, like, really... Which is, like, mid-physics and bad multiplayer.
I still want to...
At least in the demo.
Hopefully there's a demo. Yeah.
There was a demo for Steam Next Fest.
Okay.
So I wanted to download it to my Steam Deck, but by the time I got around to trying to do that, it didn't... It was gone. And also, it gave a question mark, so it could have been a situation where I grabbed the demo like I did for Flintlock, the Siege of Dawn, and then it just doesn't work because, obviously, they haven't had time to test a demo that's only up for a week. But the people who have played the demo have said that, like, the physics of the driving are somewhere between the Crew and Horizon in terms of quality. And like a 7 out of 10 overall. Apparently, like, there's a very big understeer problem because they were trying to compensate for oversteer too much and grip and things like that.
I mean, I'm not too concerned about that type of.
Yeah, no, me either. I'm more arcadey.
So, like, I still want to try that game out. I'm still, like, interested in it. But if that doesn't turn out great, there are at least I don't know if you saw the Ubisoft stuff, but there's at least like a new island coming to the Crew.
Well, I did. So we discussed that last week.
We did. Yeah, that's right. We did mention that. Yeah.
But you're right also that I did not watch the Crew-related stuff. I should. Yeah. Because I want to get really hyped for that game again.
I mean, that's the main thing I care about, because I really exhausted the things that I wanted to do on that game. Like, I was doing a lot of the weekly stuff, and it stayed fairly interesting, but eventually it's like, well, I'm not going to just boot up this game for 10 minutes every week just to do the... You know, it gets to the point where
with you not playing it,
I'm booting up this game to do the weekly challenges, and, like, I don't know. If that's the only reason I'm booting this game up, I'm just going to uninstall it for now and get back to it when there's something substantial. And it seems like this new season is pretty substantial, so I'll probably install it just for that.
I had a similar deal with Forza Horizon 5. I mean, for the Crew, I was really mainly playing that to play with you, because it's a fun game in multiplayer. Yeah. I mean, pretty much anything is, except for watching paint dry, even something like Power Wash Simulator is fun in co-op. But the main problem for me with Forza Horizon 5 was very similar to what you... Like, there was just too much stuff, that was kind of junk foody about Forza Horizon 5, and so I would do little bits here and there, and then be like, over time. So something like a universal car pack is cool, but I'm like, The last time I brought a cosmetic car pack for anything was the Jurassic stuff for Rocket League, because, well, that also came with a T-Rex Gold explosion. So, and I guess, like, I got a bunch of cars as part of the Ultimate Edition of Forza Horizon 5, but I wasn't buying that for the cars, for the most part. Because that game has so many cars to begin with in the base game. I was buying it for the expansions, which ended up being mid.
Yeah.
Still, it seems like between Avowed, Indiana Jones, Astrobot, Mario and Luigi, it seems like the back half of this year is better than a lot of people were thinking. And that can only be a good thing for everybody on every platform.
Yeah, that's part of what was so surprising about this Direct, is because Nintendo does traditionally, like, their last year of their console, it's like, all right, they are already halfway, they're already halfway through the door. They have their foot in the door of their next console, and they're just not going to do much for this last year.
Also,
but they have a lot going on.
Also, my wish list for my Steam Deck is 49 items long, and like 11 of them are DLC for a truck game. So there's plenty to eat if you know where to look. And Nintendo proved once again with this show why they are some of the best cooks in the business.
Yeah.
You can criticize them on a lot of other things for very valid reasons, as I have throughout the stream. As you have throughout the stream. Like shutting down whatever I keep forgetting the RPG makers, the Dream Alpha Dream.
Yeah.
Okay, I will remember it from now on. I don't know why I thought it was something else in front of the Dream, but anyway. Well, it is finally so late.
Before we wrap up, I am playing Turok right now. It is holy Lord.
Oh,
I don't think anyone born this century would be able to wrap their mind around them.
Yeah,
I barely am, and I played the dozens of hours of this game back in the day.
I remember.
Let me just briefly break it down.
Okay,
so
sure.
you move forward and backwards with the C buttons, but you move left and right with the analog stick.
Oh,
you change your movement speed with the D-pad, which requires either a third hand or for you to stop moving and move your left hand over. To
it seems like the N64 controller in particular loves to have you switch positions a lot.
I'm getting used to it already, but it's still amazing how old console shooters had these sorts of controls before Halo. It's incredible.
Well,
oh my god.
Yeah, I mean that's just the limitations of one analog stick. But
it's just so fascinating to see what people.
You also have the muscle memory for it.
Yeah, what was being tried? I mean, but even with the muscle memory, I haven't touched this version of this game in like 20 years, so it's like I'm still like a little bit bewildered by it. So, oh my god. Okay, well, I managed to actually kill some people.
I know, right? But
still,
yeah, it's a lot easier with the night dive, especially again when you have the PC level fog and then the enemies can't see you.
If I was going to seriously play this game, I'd definitely do that version. But this is actually interesting to see at the very least.
Yeah, it's a good historical artifact, and I'm glad people have a version of it on a modern device.
Yeah, because I played the hell out of this game.
That's easier than emulation,
20 years ago.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So I actually did play Turok on original hardware, and I want to talk about that for a bit. Holy shit. Okay, so yeah, I definitely had the whole "this controller is made by aliens" rant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big N64 controller defender. It's just some games are not suited for it whatsoever.
Like, I get the C button.
And you can even make first-person shooters can work in it. It's just most developers really had not figured it out.
I get the C button aiming, even though it's a little stiff, obviously, because
it's not good, but it's workable in the end.
I played Nova.
I'm actually pretty used to it now. And it's also inverted up and down by default. You can't turn that off, but that's stuff that I generally get used to.
Oh yeah, I think I just can't. You see, the reason being, that I only ever played first-person shooters there on the PC with mouse look that was natural, and then have to have my flight simulators inverted for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean, that makes sense. Like,
yeah, I could never do inverted first
yeah,
person.
I play uninverted by default when there's the option, but there wasn't always the option. Some games just did not have the option. The developers just chose, let's make it inverted, and they stuck with it. There was not an option to not do that.
Ouch.
So it's just a case of like, I'm old enough to remember when that was a thing, and so my brain just has to force myself to get used to it. It's like, well, this is how it is.
And my brain can't adapt to old control formats when it's good enough. Like, I understand the C-stick aiming stuff, or not C-stick, the C buttons, excuse me, aiming stuff, because I had a very similar experience with Nova on the PSP, which was a PSP Mini back in like 2009 or so. Also came out on iOS, and that's how I played it back then. But since I didn't have an old iOS to re-download that game, I just got the PSP file and loaded it up on an old PSP, and I was like, oh my god, this is terrible. But I was able to get through at least the first couple of levels. Again, it's a situation of, if I was really playing this game seriously, which I decided to do by ending up getting an old iPad to play Nova 2, which is much better anyway. Again, like, a lot of times games need sequels to refine these sorts of ideas, so, like, it seems the controls may have been refined a little bit more in Turok 2, just as they were with Nova 2, which is still very Halo at home.
You say that, but I don't really remember that being the case. If they ever put Turok 2 on here, then I'll probably find out, but...
Well,
I pretty rough like this one.
I'm guessing. I mean, even Rare, they had to make GoldenEye, for instance, in time for... Was it in time for the movie release? I don't know.
The movie came out in 95.
Okay, so it was definitely not timely.
No.
For some reason, I keep thinking the movie came out in 97, but I saw it forever ago, so But they still wanted to get it out by, like, the holiday, I think.
Holiday, like, it came out August 97, I think.
Well, the game has finally had enough of my shit and disconnected me. And I got a lazy beard error. But I'm happy to just shoot the shit for a couple more minutes while I wrap up. Because we're almost at the 3-hour mark for this stream.
I mean, hey, I ran all my errands today, and tomorrow I'm doing absolutely nothing. So I didn't mind staying up a bit late.
I do have a lot of errands, but my apartment is so small that they're pretty quick to do. Yeah, and I have groceries ordered ahead of time, and what I'm planning to do is go with my family to get my hair blown out and to see Inside Out 2. Cool. I've heard that's really good, and I'm very happy that it seems to be making a lot of money, though I am very nervous about Pixar drawing the wrong lessons from that movie. Yeah. Just like WBD drew the wrong lessons from literally everything in the past year, or the past couple years. Because I was just talking with somebody as well about like how fucking annoying it was that Gotham Knights had no block buttons, so they could make you deal with spongy enemies, and in order to try to live serviceify that, and then they unlive serviceified that, but they were too far ahead in development, and then they turned their live service greed to Suicide Squad by forcing a studio that was made for single-player games to put in multiplayer, and both bombed for different reasons. Like, one, because it wasn't co-op-y enough, like only 2 players, really. And another because, despite actually having a pretty good story, apparently, and the other having just the right amount of co-op, but a terrible story. So yeah, like, a large part of the problem is just that it's easier to do what sells. In movies, in books, in video games, in TV shows. And meanwhile, people's attention spans are being taken up by social media. And other things than entertainment, because because when you tell people that entertainment is cheap filler on a subscription service, then people will treat media cheaply. They'll just be like, next. And I do that too. I mean, I have so many games that have been shoved down my hard drive from Game Pass that I haven't even touched yet. And I don't know why I wasted time with the Callisto Protocol again, except that it was on Game Pass. Like, I don't know. At least that gives a boost to people wanting to sell their to redo a first impression with their games after sales have declined substantially. Like, I'm pretty sure the Callisto Protocol, the Crafton were like, okay, we need to get some boost of attention to this game. So, with these new updates now, and the expansion, which I did buy, actually, so I was, like, committed. And maybe, like I said, I will try it again a little bit tonight before bed. If I can't get past that section, though, then I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna write off this DLC as a $10 whoopsies.
Yeah.
But, man, like, the options are there if you know where to look for them. It's just that it is harder to look for them nowadays. And, yet, like, we have an embarrassment of riches. So,
I mean,
embarrassment of riches is with this show, yeah. And you've been really eating good with 100-hour RPGs.
Yeah,
practically every other week.
So I was going to touch on this earlier, but I didn't get a chance. So I did start Borderlands 3, but I do still want to play more of it with you, especially. Mm-hmm. But I have been playing a lot of those. So after I did the first mission in Borderlands 3, I'm like, you know what? Let me find a different game to play. I randomly started Saints Row the original, which I've played before, but it's been 15 plus years.
I was gonna say the new one is on Game Pass, I think.
Yeah, is it? If it is, I'll download it. But
let me see.
I'll have to check later. I didn't remember.
I can check now.
Yeah. By the way, I'm playing.
Oh, I can't search because I'm streaming, but whatever. I'll do it later.
Controls pretty well still, honestly, especially compared to Turok. Like,
that was a point I wanted to make.
The aiming at the time.
That was a point I wanted to make, was that they had to rush out GoldenEye quickly, but then with Perfect Dark, which was practically a sequel in all but name, they were able to build on that. It's still a little bit rough mission design-wise for me, but I might just be bad at it.
And it still controls, like, reasonably well.
Yeah, I mean,
right now,
the 360 version is great, but it seems like the N64
version is better in every way, but like, if this is the version you have to play, it's still pretty good, I think. And
hopefully, it also has good performance, because I know that a lot of the expansion games didn't for a minute there.
No, they've ironed a lot of that out. Even, a lot of the stuff that was performing not great.
I hope they've been doing it by hiring the. Maybe they should, instead of going after emulator developers, be like, hey, can we hire you for our teams to make our games more compatible so that we aren't putting out games at a trickle?
That would be a nice fantasy world to live in, but unfortunately Nintendo does not operate that way.
Nope. Yeah, well, why don't you get hired by Nintendo after you get hired by Capcom, and then you can fix that.
Tell them what to do with their business.
Yeah,
but Perfect Dark, I always forget these games have, like, widescreen modes. This game even has, like, a high-res textures mode where the textures look pretty good for an N64 game.
Oh yeah, they did have all the things like that.
Stuff. Like this game looks really good. This is probably, if not the best looking N64 game, like top 3 or top 5. Because, like, you have, like, actual lighting going on. You have, like, decent textures. Like, really impressive, honestly.
I think they did a similar setup for Quake 2 for the N64, where you could have where without the expansion pack. Yeah, the expansion pack. You would have a lower resolution version at 240 something. Yeah, 240p. And then, like, the other one was at 320p with better textures. And that's considered one of the best looking games of the N64,
yeah,
so they might have arrived at similar techniques in a different way,
yeah.
which is interesting.
Like, I'm honestly impressed by this. Like, it doesn't look as good as the 360 version, but it's really not as far off as you would think.
Because, like, you know what, I'm betting that, we'll finally have people saying, look, the generation has arrived this year, because in the first years of a console, it always takes some time to get used to the development tools and stuff. And then by the midpoint, people are really peaking with the graphics, and then by the end, they're squeezing as much performance and graphics as they can out of the aging hardware. So this is just kind of the cycle that as it has always been. It's just longer, and in a faster paced world that can be hard, which is why like the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X existed, to get ahead of the rapidly changing market for 4K TVs. They just eliminated 8K from the PS5 box because they're like, yeah, at this point that's not
realistically
happening.
Yeah, the vast majority of games are not going to ever hit this target. Anything that does, like, who is actually playing?
There was like one game that did.
The Tourist.
Internally.
The
Tourist, yes.
Yes.
Is 8K 60.
And again,
but they disabled that, so it doesn't even work. It's just an internal downscaler that looks nicer for sure, but the Tourist, I think, might also be technically... I think it might be 120 FPS on the Series X, but I'm like, this is overkill for such a simple game. It's pretty nice.
It's a game with a minimalist... Like, of course those types of games are going to be more easily able to hit those higher targets. Like, it's a more minimalist art style. I'm not saying anything about the quality of it because it looks great, but it's, you're not going to be seeing... Like, when they put 8K on the box, what you think of is like, oh, these Sony games are going to run at 8K. Of course they're not.
Or
you're not going to be getting God of War and Horizon at 8K anytime soon.
They were able to quickly clarify that they were thinking mostly about video, like streaming services, if that ever happened, or Blu-rays.
Even so, like, we feel still so far out from that hitting any sort of mass market.
Seriously,
that like they put that on the box 3.5 years ago. I don't think there's anything like that happening on a wide scale. The kinds of innovations that are happening in the TV market are more in terms of trying to steal all of your data, even if you're just playing through an HDMI cable, and then like bricking your TV if you don't agree, you peon, rather than image quality, because that's more expensive, and again, there isn't that market. Again, it was kind of smart of them to try to get ahead of it, but the kinds of people who are image quality nerds, like me, they have their 4K TV with 120 FPS, and, I buy a 4K Blu-ray on occasion. I might get the collection of the Mad Max movies, even though I have the regular Blu-rays for all of them before this point. Simply because the image quality will be pristine on these, but that's a tiny segment of a dying market, so there might be 8K Blu-rays eventually for the really super nerdy collectors, but physical media has plateaued in terms of innovation for this kind of thing anyway, in terms of spinning optical media. There are optical discs that are better than that, like the M disc that apparently can hold your data for 1,000 years. According to like some really complicated tests that smarter people than me designed. But like, we'll have to figure out a lot of game preservation issues before we're putting things on M discs. For now though, this year's looking pretty great. So with that, all around. Yeah.
With that, I gotta finally let you go, but this was a blast, even though we got blasted to pieces by Reapers.
Yeah. So I was going to say, they did ask me to work tomorrow, but thankfully I told them no, because I was already planning to go to Six Flags.
Okay, good.
So, and my work schedule this week, the rest of the week, isn't too bad. So I would say I'd possibly be available Thursday. If not Thursday, then either Friday or maybe Saturday. I'm not sure.
All of those days work perfectly for me, and I can absolutely... just let me know what your character level is in Borderlands. If you're not touching it at all until we play...
Yeah, I don't really plan to, because like I said, I kind of sidetracked myself with Saints Row. I'm really deep into that, so I'm willing to...
Yeah, and I will text you...
I'm willing to not burn myself out further on Borderlands, because I was starting to feel it. Like, I played the first mission in 3, and I'm like, oh, doing this again.
They do end up opening it up quite a bit more after that point, but...
It was cool to see, because, like, there is a lot, you know, it's a much nicer looking game, and everything just looks a little better.
As long as you're okay with me playing it with you,
oh yeah,
perhaps for a stream this week, then...
The thing is, I don't know how much I'm willing to commit to a full co-op playthrough. If I'm really feeling it and want to keep going with it on my own, I might just end up doing that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But we'll see how it goes. I do want to at least try it co-op, so that's why I'm definitely willing to wait.
Because I barely touched it myself... The thing that I want to commit to a full co-op playthrough of is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands.
Okay, yeah.
Since you got that game, and since, again, I barely played it, and have all the DLCs, I might as well get through that.
I also bought all the DLCs, so...
Yeah, I think that you said that that edition that had everything was $17, so that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so it was
only
a couple bucks more.
Go onto Game Pass, like, in July or something.
Oh, I'm sure.
Lol.
But whatever.
Well,
that's how it goes sometimes.
A lot of people, like, people who do this say on Reddit, well, I sacrificed myself. I took the bullet, I bought the game, but, well, yeah, just let me know when you're free. I will at least do a new character on Borderlands to prepare. I don't know what exactly the mission is that you left off at, but...
it was, like, literally after the intro. Like, as soon as you meet, Lilith again, pretty much.
Okay, so then I can shut it off after that point, and you can invite me, and we can have a lined-up thing for a couple of hours.
I'm loading up Borderlands just so I can quickly tell you what level I am. It's signing me in right now, so I can just quickly let you know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah. It's just taking a good minute to actually sign me in, but...
Yeah, it's okay. That thing takes a while anyway, so maybe if it takes a while, then...
Here we go.
Okay.
I'm level 2, and the class I chose was Siren, by the way. I wanted to try something different.
Okay, so...
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, I gotta try something different than whatever class I had in Borderlands 3. I literally haven't touched it since installing it, so I don't even remember.
Okay. Well, yeah, like, I'm only level 2, so if you can just join, like, make a character and join right in, you're not going to be super under-leveled or anything. You'll probably catch up pretty quickly.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, yeah, it looks like we have a packed, fun week ahead. Let me know how Six Flags is, and I can't wait to play Borderlands with you. I haven't really played it with anybody since the infamous I'm dying in lava incident in Borderlands, the pre-sequel, I think. Or no, it might have been 2 remastered with my Portuguese friend. But anyway, you have a good one then. And I will talk to you later.
All right, see you later this week. Bye.
Talk to you all later, chat. Bye.